Hey, good morning, everyone. It's June 6, 2024. I'm going to call the business meeting of the Governing Board of the South Florida Water Management District to order. First on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd ask you to stand with me and face the flag. And today, as we do that, if you could remember, it's the 80th anniversary of D-Day. Good morning. It's nice to see you all. Mr. Bergeron's not going to be able to make it today. Mr. Martinez, Ms. Roman, and Vice Chair Wagner are all on the phone. Have you done mic checks with them? Okay. I'm not going to do another one. Board members, I am going to ask to make sure you hold your microphone. Your microphone is on, and that you please speak into the mic so online attendees can hear you. And if you turn your head while you're speaking, drag the mic with you so that your comments can be captured. Members of the public who are on Zoom and wish to address the board may use the raise your hand feature. If members of the public are having any trouble, if you need help, please go to our website, sfwmd.gov, and click the Ask Us button at the top of the page, and staff will help you out. If you're using a phone and you'd like to comment, please press star 9 and raise your hand, and star 6 to mute and unmute yourself. And as a courtesy to others who wish to speak, members of the public are asked to comment only once on each topic. We will take public comment first from those who are here in person and submitted a comment card, followed by those who raised hands on Zoom. Switching gears, the district is celebrating 75 years of public service. On June 2nd, 1949, under Florida Governor Warren Fuller, the state legislature created the Central and Southern Florida Flood Control District, our predecessor agency. So we're going to have cake later after lunch to commemorate this special occasion. We ask you please join us. It's amazing. The system started out with 2 million people in it, and now we've got 9.2 million people that we serve. Also, it's this time of year. It's going to start raining soon, if it hasn't already, on you. It's a good time to remember the ability to live, work, play, raise families in South Florida depends on this district's water management system. Since 2012, the governing board and the senior management team have commemorated the beginning of the wet season, and we have an item on the discussion agenda today highlighting Flood Awareness Month that I'm looking forward to. Now we're going to go to employee recognition, so if you could join me up front. Drew.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right. Our June 2024 Employee of the Month is Natasha Warich, Senior Environmental Analyst, Division of Ecosystem Restoration. All right. Are you ready? Knock, knock. Who? Natasha, there's an owl at the door. Come quick. We are recognizing Natasha for her work with owls, specifically burrowing owls. And she has been our lead project manager over at the C-139 Basin to try to take care of that endangered species that we care for so much, the burrowing owl. The way we do that is Natasha arranged a team to set up a 50-acre permanent conservation area for the burrowing owl. So that they can live, thrive here in South Florida on our 50-acre site. To do that, she spent 2 years, it took less, she was at the C-139 site monitoring that for 2 years, making sure that there weren't any owls impacted, while building 27 artificial burrows on this 50-acre site. While she was building those burrows, the owls were moving in. They really like her. We have termed that village Hootville for those 27 burrows. But it's all Natasha's work to set up that conservation area that we're very proud of at the district. She also does drone piloting for us. She's flown over 100 missions looking at vegetation surveys, permit reports, wildlife surveys, and construction progress. And she's also our black rail expert. That's a ground nesting bird that we also need to take care of very well. Because Natasha works for us, she saves us hundreds of thousands of years of dollars at the district, doing her work, taking care of our endangered species. She's a true asset to the agency. And when the owls come knocking, Natasha's there to help them. Natasha, congratulations. All right. Our June 2024 Team of the Month is the Ecological Engineering Journal special issue on the stormwater treatment areas team. That consists of Cassandra Armstrong, Mark Barton, Sarah Baumhoft, Mike Chimney, Mark Cook, Orlando Diaz, Jake Dombrowski, Tom James, Jessica Jennison, Jill King, Susan Mason, Sue Newman, Tracy Picone, Matt Powers, Odo Villapando, Felipe Zomorando, and Hong Ying Zhou. So, this STA team has been studying our STAs since 2013 under a science plan funded by the district under restoration strategies. They have gotten so smart about our STAs. They are understanding the phosphorus dynamics, the plant dynamics, the hydrodynamics, all what goes into us trying to deliver clean water to the Everglades. And that is all culminating now in a special issue for this Ecological Engineering Journal. It takes a special issue because this team spent the last 2 years putting together scientific peer-reviewed articles for this special issue. It is 20 publications, authored, co-authored, edited, and reviewed by this team to publish in this special issue, which is now online for everybody to enjoy. This will have worldwide interest, worldwide academic interest. Once you get published in a scientific journal, it is quoted, cited, reviewed, and it's really an honor that we have so much staff that can put publications out by the Water Management District. It's a source of pride. This team is a source of pride, and that is why, with this special issue publication, we're honoring them with Team of the Month. Congratulations. Well done. Well done. We'll get a link sent to you so you can read that. Good work. All right, we now have a 30-year service award. It is to Kimberly Richer, Lead Scientist, Compliance Assessment, Reporting Section in our Water Quality Bureau. So Kim came to us 30 years ago after graduating from UC Santa Cruz But before she graduated, before she graduated, and then she came to Florida working for the Nature Conservancy at Blowing Rocks. And she hasn't left Florida since. She was an intern there, but then she joined us in 1994, and she was a scientific technician. But what she did for us was she organized. She organized workshops for us, and she did a lot of that expert assistance program with us. But what we found out about Kim was that her technical writing skills were superb. And so she has jumped into that technical writing ever since. She's helped us with scientific papers, standard operating procedures, conditions reports, and she even helped produce the very first Everglades interim report, which later became the SFER. She took a stint in Recover. She's probably still, honestly, she does everything, right? So she's still, she's working in SERP Recover, which is our science arm of Comprehensive Everglades Restoration, and she plans and leads teams, and she's the production manager for the SERP report, which is a System Status Reports. 2024 edition is coming out soon. So she manages the team that produces that report, but what she's best known for, and since 2016, she's been our production manager for the South Florida Environmental Report, which is our granddaddy report that we publish every year. Amazing amount of information contained in that report. And in fact, in the 2024 report for Volume 1, covering Water Year 2023, this report contained 2,081 pages, 371 tables, 915 graphs, and involved collaboration with 155 authors and 42 other contributors. That's a lot of organization, Kim. That's a lot. We all enjoyed the open house, second year of the open house we had this year. She was very much a part of that. And if you went through that, you got to talk to her and see what it takes to put together that SFER. So Kimberly is pretty much the written face of the Water Management District, and we really appreciate her 30 years of service to us, and it's been really a pleasure. Thank you, Kimberly, for your 30 years. All right, now I have another 30-year service award. This is Tabitha Martin, Business Administrative Assistant in the Applied Sciences Bureau. 30 years. So Tabby came to us in 1993. She was a temp. But then she became permanent because we saw that skill. And she spent the first 24 years as doing administrative work for our regulatory division, which is basically making sure that everything ticks. The data management, the travel, all the stuff in that regulatory area is supported by her. But then for the last 6 years, she's moved over to Applied Sciences as an administrative assistant, but then was promoted to a business admin assistant in the Everglades section. In that role, she basically manages the SAP, our backbone data system, in addition to all the administrative help that group needs. She works through purchase orders, monitoring, and she monitors the budget, encumbrances, expenditures, and she even manages projects for that Everglades section, while also providing the administrative support for 75 staff for the entire Bureau. Without her, that place falls apart, quite frankly. and so she is an absolute essential to the Water Management District. She's been that way for 30 years. We're so happy to have her on board. And I know that Stuart and Fred and the 75 folks over there really, really appreciate her service and her commitment to the district. Thank you, Tabby, for your 30 years of service. 35-year service award. Steve Krupa, Hydrogeology Section Leader, Water Supply Bureau. So Steve is a professional geologist with a master's in geology, and he came to us in 1989 as a hydrogeologist. And one of the first things he did for the district was he figured out a technical way to measure seepage, because we have to deal with seepage at the Water Management District. So he was the first one to bring a device to the district, create the device, and measure seepage, and we all refer to that device as the Krupa Seep. So he was also the first to install measuring systems in groundwater to understand velocity and direction of groundwater. When your district is on Swiss cheese, it's very important to know how much the groundwater is flowing, and which way it's going. But really, he's done so many projects when it comes to seepage, with stormwater treatment areas, up in the Kissimmee River, the estuaries, and down in Biscayne Bay, everywhere where we need to know how water and surface water and groundwater interact in our system. 15 years ago, he became the section leader of the hydrogeology unit. And so he's been working on leading the team to work on so many important projects, some of them being that his team was the first to drill the deepest well ever in the district up in the Central Florida Water Initiative, 2,800 feet. I remember that well drilling. That was a feat. They were up there a lot, making sure that happened. They've installed the groundwater monitoring network that's 132 wells for the Floridan aquifer. They have the entire network of 500 wells that you see in John's conditions report every month. And then, of course, the saltwater intrusion mapping. His team leads that. So also, many scientific investigations through understanding tree islands, hydrogeology with tree islands, STAs, the pump stations, gates, the Turkey Point canal, cooling canal system, understanding seepage up there, reservoirs. He and his team helped us navigate the groundwater network from NGVD to NAVD as well. And then, of course, occasionally we need an expert in our legal proceedings, and Steve is very good at that as well. Of course, Steve, in his 35 years, he's been published. He's authored and co-authored numerous district peer-reviewed journals. And quite frankly, as a section leader, you heard the applause. He has set up that unit very well. I know he doesn't plan to retire for another 10 or 15 years, but when he does, we will be certainly in good shape because of what he's grown in that group. He's a devoted husband, father, and active in his church. And in fact, he's a founding member of Water for Small Villages. He's done many trips to Haiti to install water supply for folks over there. And he's launching efforts in Kenya as well. He's been part of Toastmasters. He currently serves on the University of Florida Geological Advisory Board, and he's also previously served on the Florida Atlantic University Advisory Committee on Geomatics Engineering. 35 years of service has been great. He's done wonderful things for the district, and to the district. No, I'm just kidding. Because we are benefiting from his work. Steve, thank you so much for your 35 years of service. Of course, we have one more service anniversary. Mr. Chair, you mentioned it, 75 years of service. And so we are commemorating that. And so we have a proclamation that I signed. I signed every service certificate. So I signed a proclamation for the Water Management District and our 75 years of service to our communities and businesses. So congratulations, District, 75 years.
Well, thank you, Drew, very much for those awards. You mentioned a source of pride, and I think everyone sitting up here certainly has that same sense of pride in this organization and our employees. Thank you for your leadership. Agenda revisions. Molly, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Item 18 was edited to include the contract information.
Great. And now we'll go to the agenda item, abstentions by board members, and we'll poll the board here. I'll start with you, Mr. Stanley. Do you have any?
I have none.
I have none, Ms. Meads.
I have none.
Mr. Butler?
I have none.
Vice Chair Wagner, do you have any abstentions?
Sorry, none.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Martinez?
None.
Colonel Roman?
None.
Thank you. And now we'll look at the approval for the minutes of the May 9th, 2024 Governing Board meeting. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes? If not, I have a motion and a second to approve
Make a
them?
motion to approve.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion here? None. We'll call that question. Mr. Steinle?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Ms. Meads?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Vice Chair Wagner?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Thank you. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously, and we'll go to Executive Director's Report with Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, we mentioned how old the district is, 75 years. That also kind of is a reflection on the fact that we do have an aging flood control system as well, that we are very much investing, and the governor is very much investing in making sure that it stays completely functional with a $150 million infusion. You may recall that the governor signed Senate Bill 1638, where the legislature stepped up and appropriated $150 million to help us for the overhaul, upgrade, and complete rehabilitation of that flood control system. And so right now, we are working through a spending plan and grant agreement to send up to Tallahassee to get that funds released to us, which we will need particularly in August. We have two items on consent to really start spending that money for that upgrades and rehabilitation. And so that is in process right now, working with DEP and the governor's office and the state legislature to make sure that that goes smoothly and those funds come to the district for that upgrade. So also yesterday, we sent another letter to the Corps of Engineers committing, our commitment letter for Western Everglades restoration, as we are very much in favor of the Corps submitting that for authorization in 2024 to help the Everglades system. We were expecting to have Western Everglades here in June, but the documentation is not quite ready at the Corps yet. But in order for them to make the next step in their process, they needed a reassurance from us that we're still committed to the project. So we sent that up yesterday. One of the things they're still working on is how are they going to approach cost share on the North Feeder stormwater treatment area. Right now, the draft chief's report includes cost share for that with us because it is SERP. There is options in there coming out of parts of the Corps that may suggest that they would not cost share for the North Feeder STA. That is going to get resolved, and then we will receive final documents to the district for review, hopefully for the August board meeting. So we will have that for you probably in August, assuming everything goes well at the Corps of Engineers. We did reiterate our commitment to be the agency that designs and implements Western Everglades, including all the work we'll do in the western and northern feeder for water quality and water management for those areas as we go forward. Also wanted to let you know, in case you didn't see it, that the Blue-Green Algae Task Force met on Tuesday. And that was a meeting that was very much focused on agriculture and its relationship with water quality. And they had a very detailed presentation from FDACS, Florida Department of Agriculture, and also IFAS out of University of Florida to talk through everything that's going on and how water quality is being managed when it comes to agricultural sources. Tanyelle will get that link to you to that video if you want to watch it, because there's a lot of good information there. And Jennifer Reynolds has been talking with Wes Gregory, who's the head of the Office of Ag Water Policy in FDACS, and he's offered to come down and present their information to the board. If you would be interested, just let me know. Also, get your pens out because the Python Challenge registration is open. The competition is August 9th through 18th. We joined the Lieutenant Governor for the announcement of the kickoff. Board member Bergeron was there as well. And so you can get prizes for the most pythons. You can get a prize for the longest python. And not that this applies to any of you, but there's an amateur category, that you can compete in as well. Y'all are all amateurs. But I'm happy to report that since FWC and the district teamed up, we've removed 13,600 pythons. So that's a lot of pythons, but there's more out there that we can get. The last thing I have is tomorrow we'll have an open house at S191, which is up on the north shore of Lake Okeechobee, and that's what drains into Lake Okeechobee from that basin, the S191 basin. And this was one of those solicitations where it was pay for performance. And so we solicited for any company to bid and then mobilize and set up shop, and we would pay per pound of phosphorus removed. So they are now removing phosphorus, but up until then, we didn't pay them a dime, right? So they did it all on their own dime, got out there, mobilized, set up, got the permits, everything that was necessary, and now they're removing, and now we'll pay them to remove that phosphorus. So we're going to cut a ribbon. So this is one of those unique things where we cut a ribbon on something that we didn't design or deploy, right? So we're going to do that tomorrow after the 16 County Coalition meeting up in Okeechobee, and you're welcome to come. The company's name is Nuquatic that implemented this program. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Mr. Bartlett? Thanks, Drew. We'll move now to general public comment. If you're here to comment on a specific agenda item, we ask that you hold your comment until we reach that item on our agenda. The comment period is for general comments not related to agenda items, and we appreciate your adhering to that. Public comment for consent agenda items is item 11 on the agenda, and public comment for discussion agenda items will be held after each presentation. The public had an opportunity to provide written comment prior to this meeting, and we did not receive any comments. Are there any general public comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We'll hear first from Ben Olson, followed by Newton Cook.
Morning. On Monday, I sent all the governing board members videos of 5 trail camera recordings. One video was a bear biting a camera. The other 4 videos showed 5 different panthers, including 2 newborn kittens. These cats were all recorded in a 50-day time period. That's 5 different panthers in 50 days. And there were a lot of videos other than that. This one camera was put up March 30th. And the more cameras I put up, the more apparent it becomes just how much endangered wildlife is on these pristine lands. This is not unique to my property. All of my neighbors view this as well. As I've pointed out to you in the past, this land would be unintentionally flooded by the WERP draft tentatively selected plan, with the closable culverts being installed on the Kissimmee Billy Strand and with the potential to plug the Lardcan Canal's flow into the West Feeder Canal. This highway these animals use is at risk. FWC's official position, to my knowledge, is that they support the backfilling of the Wingate and Lardcan Canals. At least they did as of a few months ago. Shannon Estenos and her U.S. Fish and Wildlife refuse to acknowledge the litany of endangered animals on my land, on these lands. To my knowledge, their position is that the project is good for the endangered animals in the region as a whole. I know the Corps has officially removed the plug from what they're going to put in front of Congress for, quote, canal modification rather than backfilling. But in April, I spoke to Mr. Baisden of the Corps, and he was happy to admit that the plug would go right back into the plan after congressional authorization if they deemed it necessary. I also know you guys have done modeling to show that when those Kissimmee Billy Strand culverts are closed, there'd be a pretty significant amount of flooding south of Wingate Mill. But you already knew that. From a sunshine request, I discovered that as early as December 2017, the Corps was pushing water management to seize portions or all of tens of thousands of acres. I found my home address in that list, as well as the very parcel these cats were recorded on. In the 2017 scoping study, it was known that the modification of the southern bank of Wingate would cause flooding south of Wingate Mill Canal. But back then, it was only 1/3 the amount of water that the Corps wants to force into the Kissimmee Billy Strand now. We weren't informed of the Corps' attempted theft for lack of a better term, for another 5 years. But somehow in that same 5-year period, the scoping study apparently got lost in the weeds. If the agencies that are supposed to protect these animals refuse to acknowledge them, and if the Corps openly admits that they'll reintroduce the plug if they deem it necessary, then ultimately, governing board members, it will be up to you to protect these wild lands of Florida. If this water is flooded south out of Wingate, it will not flow into the Kissimmee Billy Strand because that was never the natural flowway. It will flow south and southwest through all of these lands that all of these panthers use as a highway into the Big Cypress National Preserve, and that will put a nail in the coffin on the preserve's wildlife access. You guys can be the ones that protect the Florida's last wilderness. And real quick, I just want to thank all of the water management team for working with the landowners, and thank you guys for not agreeing with the Corps to seize all of this land in 2017. I understand that it was water management that fought back against that. Restoration's totally
Please wrap up
achievable.
your comments.
Yeah, restoration's totally achievable, but not if we rush it through to destroy these pristine lands. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. We'll hear next from Newton Cook, followed by Ryan Rossi on Zoom.
Thank you. Newton Cook, United Waterfowlers of Florida. First thing is I want to be sure to invite everyone here and Zoom to the June 24, 5 p.m. in this meeting room, the recreation meeting that we have 3 times a year. Hikers, bikers, horseback riders, campers, anglers, hunters. We normally have a pretty good crowd. I always tease Drew that we outdraw the governing board meetings. But it's a great meeting and a fun meeting. It's an open roundtable, Zoomed, and we get a lot of comments, and there's usually with Zoom and all something close to 100 people or so from Orlando to the Keys. And right now, as I stand here, there's thousands of people on district property recreating, and it's very much appreciated and the best PR that you can ever have. We've had a drought. Thank you, Mother Nature. Now we should be burning. I don't see a lot of smoke. We should be burning like crazy. Rodenberger, Holy Land, the WCAs, the lake. All these natural lands need to burn at least once every 5 years. That's the way it was here before we got in here and mucked up things. And that, speaking of muck fires, if you burn now, you don't have to worry about a muck fire because we know the rain's coming. So let's get the fires going out there and get this property, all these thousands of acres of property, healthy again and not covered up with exotics and whatever. Speaking of drought, the lakes, below 13 feet. Probably headed for 12 if we don't get too much rain next week. Thank you, Mother Nature, because we sure didn't do a damn thing about it. We did everything we could to blow the whole thing out with Flosum. And then we took a foot off the lake, Corps of Engineers, thank you, Colonel, in March. Never in the history, and I've been here 20 years, have there ever been forced to take a foot off the lake without there being a storm anywhere. They literally run the lake too high all during the dry season, as per Losum. And guess what? They got caught in March with a lake that was so high, they had to blow the estuaries out with a foot of water. It's about 500,000 acre feet. Never happened in history that I know of. Now just think if we have a storm coming. You know, a foot of water when you're at 15, 14 feet, you got to get 2 feet of water off that lake. Losum is a disaster. I know it's going to pass. It's going to go through. And I rue the day that I see the estuaries blown out. And the sad thing about it is, it destroys the lake, as we all know. Where is the recovery? The lake is at 12 feet. When are we going to get our 5 years of recovery that the Corps keeps talking about? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. We'll move now to our virtual participants, starting with Ryan Rossi, followed by Scott Martin. Mr. Rossi, please unmute your mic.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Okay. Good morning. Ryan Rossi, Director of the South Florida Water Coalition. As always, thank you for the opportunity to offer public comment. Over the last month or so, I'm sure I'm not the only one who's noticed that the weather has been incredibly hot. It feels quite a bit hotter than we usually experience, at least that I've noticed, typical this month of May. And I think with hot weather and no rain, we are experiencing moderate to now severe drought conditions throughout Palm Beach and Broward counties as of this morning. As a matter of fact, I think you can drive around and see a lot of this for yourself. I know people have brought it to my attention. You drive by a lake or a pond and see just how low the water levels are. And actually, there was a story on the news last night on the water levels in West Palm's Clear Lake being so low that there is now growing concern among residents about their water supply. They're pumping water from underground wells to supplement supply for drinking water. Folks are reporting that their sprinklers aren't working correctly. I think that these are obviously real issues for the city. And while I hope that that changes, it very well might. We might get some rain coming up here. I don't know if it'll be enough, but I think it is a warning either way that we should all be concerned about. The fact is that I think that the dry times are only going to get drier, and my concern is that the rain that we do need might come in the form of a tropical event that wreaks havoc on our communities. This is what happened a few years ago. It's certainly not a solution to managing our water supply issues here in South Florida. So we can't forget that water supply is something our residents are very much concerned about. It's the responsibility of our managers and our agencies to ensure that water is always available to us. Most especially in these drier times. But without the protections that we have until recently, we've been legally guaranteed protections until now. It seems like for South Florida, especially in cities like West Palm, their backup supply is even in jeopardy in years to come. So I hope that this all stays on the radar of, as I said, our managers and our agencies. Water supply is incredibly important to residents as we experience these these kind of drastic changes in our weather. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rossi. We'll hear next from Scott Martin. Mr. Martin, please unmute your mic.
Hello, Scott Martin here, Anglers for Lake Okeechobee. I just wanted to kind of give you an update on Lake Okeechobee right now. Like our good friend Newton Cook mentioned, that we're now below 13 feet, which is good. For us, we look at anytime this lake's below 13 feet, we look at growth, submerged vegetation coming back to some degree. The problem is we've got such a short window between where we're at today and the reality of rainy season just around the corner, and the lake coming back up quickly to 14, 15 and above, and that's really going to stunt and stop all that progress. So I just encourage recovery for Lake Okeechobee. I encourage to take advantage of this opportunity right now, and let's put this lake in recovery mode, and let's gain back the acreage that we've lost. Again, we have 0 acreage of submerged vegetation, not 2,000, 0. And this is our time to take advantage of it. Right now, we're at a proper water level. We need to take advantage of burning, like Newton mentioned. We also need to take advantage of planting some vegetation in some areas, getting out there, getting proactive, take advantage of this. And the only good thing that has come out of high water, and I say that lightly because there's not many good things, is that the high water has pushed the littoral zone farther back in the marsh and has actually cleaned the bottom in some of these areas where we did have muck farther out towards the lake. So now we have harder bottom farther back in the marsh. We still have a muck problem, but we have harder bottom farther back in the marsh. And that gives us a great opportunity, kind of a fresh plate of soil to have this SAV grow. We need to take advantage of it now. If we put this lake in recovery mode now and we take advantage of trying to and focus on growing SAV, I think we can have such a fast recovery of acreage of SAV. It'll shock everyone because of our current conditions on Lake Okeechobee with this hard bottom farther back in the marsh. And we need it desperately. We need to take advantage of it. And I do appreciate South Florida Water Management, the board, the Corps, of course, the governor, focusing on Lake Okeechobee. We've been screaming and yelling and begging for help and funding for Lake Okeechobee. So I appreciate the focus that everyone has put towards Lake Okeechobee. We have to make it happen. We can't sit here and just keep having meeting after meeting. We have to get proactive and really think outside the box, get SAV back in this lake, not only for the fish, for the ducks, the birds, and most importantly, the people that support these communities around this lake with tourism. Without a healthy Lake Okeechobee, our communities are not going to survive. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. We'll hear next from Nyla Pipes. Ms. Pipes, please unmute your mic.
Good morning, sound check.
We hear you.
Fantastic. Nyla Pipes, One Florida Foundation. In addition to echoing the concerns of Newton and Scott Martin regarding Lake Okeechobee, I want to bring something to the table that I feel like has escaped a lot of people's attention. You know, we spend a lot of time talking about the lake and how to manage the lake to stop discharges. And then we end up with problems south of the lake with too high water and water conservation areas and drowning in the Central Everglades. We have some projects at the south end of the system that were supposed to be under construction now that have been delayed. If you look at the 2020 IDS, the removal of the L29 levee, removal of the L67 extension levee, and backfilling of the L67 canal should be under construction by now. But in 2023, those projects slipped on the IDS, clear back to 2029. It's a really big problem because what we're doing is we're spending all of our money on the EAA reservoir, and I understand that. I understand why. But if we let some of these other projects, these quote unquote smaller projects, slip on the IDS, we really aren't able to utilize them right now. So I just wanted everybody to be aware of that. Go look at your IDS and see what I'm talking about. We have to keep our foot on the gas pedal of all projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pipes. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional general public comment.
Oh, thank you, Molly. Thank you all very much for your comments. We're going to move now to board comment, and I'll start on my right with Mr. Steinle.
No comment right now.
Thanks. Ms. Meads?
So I'm going to go python hunting. You know I am. And I already have one hunter that you all know, I won't tell you who it is yet, who is going to go with me, and I'm looking for other people to go. I see Matt out there, and I know he's an excellent turkey hunter. So maybe Matt will go with us. But I encourage you all to go. It is the most fun you can ever have. I'm sure it's going to be smoking hot. Yeah, it's going to be smoking hot, but let's go. At least, look, Jay. I mean, Jay's quite the hunter. Let's go at least for a day. I'm going to go the whole time if I can bear up under it. Well, no, but it's still hot at night too. But you're right, not in the day. No, stop. But so I'm really looking forward to that. And also, I just want to talk about staff one more time. I'll make it quick. But when I was a very young woman, I worked at a company called Burroughs Wellcome. It was a pharmaceutical company. If you've never heard of it, look it up. It was a not-for-profit pharmaceutical company. It's now the Burroughs Wellcome Trust. But it reminds me it was the most exceptional experience that anyone could have. There were Nobel Prize winners on every hallway. Dr. Hitchings, who had a Nobel Prize, he continued to come to work after retirement. And he had his own lab, and every morning I would see him in the lobby because I never get there quite on time. And he'd be putting on his little jacket and running off to his lab. And I see a huge correlation between Burroughs Wellcome and the South Florida Water Management District staff. When I see all of the people that have been here for 30 years, 35 years, I see this journal article, the pride that you take and the incredible work that you do. And as a young woman, I was so proud to be a small part of Burroughs Wellcome. And I remember every time you looked into any journal article or any analytical method textbook, it would all say this method was invented by Burroughs Wellcome, this equipment was invented and built by Burroughs Wellcome. And I am certain that that's what the South Florida Management District is now. We are the organization who invents, who creates, and who is leading in this race. And I am so proud to play any sort of role and to be your friends. It's really magnificent. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Feets. Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple things. Chauncey may mention, and I'll go ahead and say it. Had the pleasure of speaking to the Wedgeworth Leadership Institute class, the current class in Fort Myers a couple weeks ago. And I think Chauncey, Mr. Chairman, spoke to them before, so they got to hear the history of the Caloosahatchee, and then I got to have, myself and Noah Hanley got to have good, difficult discussions with them about the system and how everything works together. And after Chauncey laid it up for them, and it was a great discussion, and I'll tell you, I got hope for the future. So I got a feeling we'll see some of those class members potentially at the dais one day. So kind of the idea behind that leadership class. I do want to say I did tune into the Blue-Green Algae Task Force meeting on Tuesday, and no, that was a good discussion, Drew. I would entertain, I think that West had a good presentation. I would entertain us hearing it. I think that the scientists on the task force did have somewhat of an eye-opening experience, just the complications that surround BMPs and implementation, and truly what BMPs are and their role in water quality in our state. And I think that it was a good discussion. It's worth paying attention to. Finally, also got to attend a ribbon cutting with the Florida Park Service and Audubon at Kissimmee Prairie State Park. Audubon helped fund a new bunkhouse at the park. They were the scientists and visiting scientists and the fire crews. They were staying essentially in a storage container. As all they had or as an old mobile home that looked like a storage container. So this new bunkhouse that Audubon funded is going to be great to have visiting researchers come in, student researchers to study all the things that go along with Kissimmee Prairie State Park, burrowing owls, grasshopper sparrow, mottled ducks, wetland prairie, dry wetland prairies. But no, that was neat. And we also had Okeechobee City Councilman Noel Chandler there, and his great uncle was the original Audubon warden that worked that Kissimmee Prairie area like 75 years before. So that was just a little bit of history that came back that I had no clue about. So, but want to recognize them and congratulate Audubon and the Florida Park Service for the new bunkhouse.
Thanks, Mr. Butler. Vice Chair Wagner, do you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. They say in leadership that there's certain things you should do and other things you got to know when you delegate. And Cheryl, I'm going to leave the python hunting to you. Appreciate all your efforts there. I wish you the best of luck out there. I want to make a comment and just sing some praise for our general counsel's office and Mary Cruz and Judy and all the folks that are working on this C-43 litigation, which we're going to talk about today a little bit. But you know, they're doing hard work, and we're gonna hold these people to account. And I just wanted to let everybody know that as the resident lawyer on the board here, you know, it seems that our counsel's office is working hand in hand with our outside counsel, and it's not light work, but people are on top of it. It seems like we've got our arms around this thing pretty good. And I just wanted to say thank you to our counsel's office and Mary Cruz and Judy and everybody in there who's doing great work on a day-to-day basis. So thank you.
Thanks, Vice Chair, and it's good to hear that. Mr. Martinez?
No comment, Mr.
Thank you. Colonel Roman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have nothing at this time.
Great. I'll wrap up quickly. On WERP, I would just want to thank our staff for working with our stakeholders and thank Mr. Olson very much for being here, for your comments and for the videos. Those are certainly entertaining. And it really, I think it's the way government's supposed to work is, you know, if we're going to do something to you or in your backyard, we need to work with you. And I appreciate very much staff doing that. I am on something called the Crew Trust Board. The Crew is the Corkscrew Regional Ecosystem Watershed, and that's in southern Lee County. And it's a nice collaborative partnership we have with Lee County, and then we hire the Crew Trust to manage the land. And I sit on, as a board member, I think generally a governing board member from that area sits on the Crew Trust Board. And I think 2 years ago, we came to the Water Management District, and to Drew specifically, I said, hey, Drew, we need some more money. We're managing more land, and we've got inflation and all the other stuff that Drew hears all the time about people needing more money. And he said, I can't do that right now. We've got a ton of stuff going on. We got our own budget problems. But what I can do is I can give you some equipment, and I can give you some in-kind services. And I'll tell you, that equipment and that in-kind service has been much more valuable. So thank you for your foresight to do that. Thank you, Joe and Thaddeus, who are on our staff, who are working really hard out there. The education that we provide there and the recreational facilities there are phenomenal. And it's a great way for people to see some of Florida that's quickly disappearing. So I appreciate that very much. And Drew, thanks. Thanks for that. And now we're going to move on to consent. Let's see, and item 13 requires a 2/3 approval vote. Is there public comment, though, before we go to public comment on consent?
Mr. Chairman, do any board members,
Oh,
would they like to?
I'm
move?
sorry. Yeah, if I could actually read, I would ask that. Is there any board members who'd like to move something from consent to discussion? I was just guessing. No, okay. Is there public comment?
We do, Mr. Chairman. We'll hear from Matt Pierce.
Good morning, Board. Appreciate the opportunity to come and speak before you. Matt Pierce, represent Florida Cattlemen's Association and serve as Chairman of Conservation Florida. I'm going to speak on the grazing leases. Speaking in favor of extending those like this recommended. I just want to shed my light on, as a past lessee of the district and a manager of a lot of land around South Florida, the positive aspects of cattle grazing. One thing they do is they're a source of revenue, so you can see that in the packet. They bring some revenue to the district. That also, on the other hand, defers some management cost. And if anybody's managed land, they know what it takes nowadays. We manage, like I say, around 13,000 acres in South Florida, and sometimes it becomes cumbersome. And the last thing you want to do is let these lands go idle and then be eat up with invasives. So the lessees that you've got are good stewards of the land. One thing I'd offer is that if you haven't been on some of these leases, or if you haven't been on some of the idle land, I'd be willing to take you. And some of you have been on that. I commend you for working on some of the things like prior to projects. I know from the bigger picture that some of these lands are bought for a project, but let's use them and manage them for an economic stimulus and then a deferment of management cost. The other thing that's not talked about a whole lot, and it's positive, because that's what I'm up here is to share a positive message. The exporting of phosphorus on these cattle grazing leases, and there's some scientific work that's been done on it. These calves that eat this grass that are exported or taken off the property as the revenue for the lessee, they're sold and they're taken out of the watershed and sent west. That money's brought back to the watershed in revenue, and then that phosphorus is left. And what I mean by that is that phosphorus that's in the tissue of the forage is being uptaken by that calf, and that's going to leave in 1% of their body weight. So we're tracking all these how we're exporting phosphorus, and we're paying X amount to do it, like you said, Drew. But this is something that the lessee is paying the district to use the land, and we're exporting phosphorus. But we're not monetizing that. We're not capitalizing on that from a PR standpoint of what that is. So there's 5 pounds per animal. It's water storage is positive, wildlife habitat, and my last and final comment would be let's look and see what other lands that we have to use them as a management tool for grazing on those. So I thank y'all for what you've done.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional public comment on this item.
Thanks for that comment. Can I have a motion and a second to approve consent?
Make a motion to approve consent?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Remember that item 13 requires 2/3 of a vote. Hearing no further discussion, I'll call that question. Mr. Steinle?
Yes.
Ms. Meets?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Vice Chair Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Colonel Rowan?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. That passes unanimously. Thanks very much. We'll move now to item 25, which is the discussion agenda, and it's Flood Awareness Month. Carolina? Or Dr. Moran?
Good morning, Chairman Goss. Good morning, governing board members. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. One more year presenting on this incredible work done by our staff to really successfully deliver on our mission of flood protection, on a regional mission as for our agency as we celebrate 75 years today here. So very important to mark this moment and really share what we have been doing for such a long time. Mr. Chairman, before I start, and as we're talking about Flood Awareness Month, I just want to ask you for a moment of silence to recognize the many 700,000 people that were impacted by a recent flood event that is happening right now in the south of Brazil, my country. We have it's about 30 days, and we are just, the country is just dealing with a severe impacts from flooding, which really makes us really understand the importance, the evidence of us being proactively investing in flood risk management. With that, just recognizing this. Thank you. Okay, with that, let's start. 75 years ago, with this construction of this massive stormwater drainage system, Central and Southern Florida project. It was driven by, again, major flooding events that happened in the past that really made it evident that we needed to have drainage, invest in drainage and flood protection infrastructure here in South Florida. It is the backbone of our living here, as was pointed by Mr. Chairman also earlier today as we celebrate 75 years. Here we just point to some of the major features. We have way more elements and components there, but here just recognizing the major features of this massive CNSF project that allows us to drain and maintain water levels, ensure water supply and flood protection, and also ecosystem restoration in South Florida. So we have river channelizations, we have the dike, the Everglades agricultural area there, all the dikes that we have there too, the water conservation area. We have protective levees and salinity control structures and an extensive drainage network that moves water around here in South Florida. Flood protection is a shared responsibility. That's a very important message. We don't do that alone. We have several partners, many water managers that are dealing with this on a 24/7 every day. So primary system is mainly managed by the Army Corps and us. We have several canals, also extensive network on the secondary system managed by local governments, special districts. And we have significant active management of water levels also at the very local level, homeowner associations and private landowners throughout South Florida. We do recognize changing conditions since the system was designed, and today we see on the maps here, on the sketches on the left, the growth of the network itself since the beginning of this until the 70s when we had most of those larger infrastructure components brought to the system. Since then, we had significant population growth. The system was designed to about 2 million people. We are over 9. We are growing and estimating to be above 11 by the 2040s. We see also a very extensive change in landscape here. we have extensive urban areas. And when this project was designed, we had assumed that the very urban spaces would be less than what we have today. So you can see all over around the areas that were assumed to be urban, fully dense occupy areas there. So significant land development. In addition, we also have those changing climate conditions that we see, especially sea level rise, that is impacting the performance of the system. So, of course, how much water we can move depends on those two. We have a major gravity system, and so what we have been seeing is limitations in how we can operate, capacity of the system as a result also of those changing conditions. On the right here, we have our famous video of one of our gated structures, salinity control structures on the coast, being overtopped by a high tide event that happened back in 2019. The good news is that we have a very strong, robust technical program for the past 10 years, our flood protection level of service program. This is really a strategy that the district has to assess infrastructure vulnerabilities today and also in the future. So they have a set of future conditions that they consider as we plan for those investments in infrastructure. So looking at land development in the future, looking at this sea level, groundwater levels, tides, really rainfall, extreme rainfall events, and really looking at a basin-wide strategy using the latest and greatest modeling tools available, a lot of science to be able to determine those, to characterize those flood risks. So that program really supports decision-making on prioritizing infrastructure investments and really addressing those flood risk management needs. I have a summary here of the results that we have so far. So we don't have the level of service studies completed in all the basins in South Florida, but we are reaching a lot of basins now. We are evolving very fast. And you can see here on the left results for the West and East Coast and Upper Kissimmee Basin. The Upper Kissimmee Basin are draft results, so please give us a chance to review upon the finish, if needed, upon the completion of this study. But so what we have here is any basin, so every polygon there is a basin. Any basin that you were seeing in yellow, orange, or red on the left side means that we consider those underperforming in today's conditions. So it's just that we have lower levels of service below what we consider ideal for those basins. And we are looking at what infrastructure investments we need to be able to, of course, continue to operate in those basins successfully. On the right, we also have the same assessment done when we have land development, population growth, and future climate conditions, including in the West Coast and East Coast, the 2 feet of sea level rise scenario. And on the Upper Kissimmee Basin, we have rainfall intensification also being projected there. In parallel to our program, the Flood Protection Level of Service Program, we have a very large endeavor with the Army Corps of Engineers, looking at the same infrastructure, utilizing mostly the same technical tools and assessments. This is the CNSF Flood Resiliency Study. It was initiated almost 2 years ago, again, with the same goal of looking at our infrastructure, understanding what are the investments that we need there, looking at future conditions, and really planning for the investments that are needed in the system to continue to successfully deliver flood protection in the region. So we have been working with the Corps. We are right now running what we call Future Without scenarios, which is equivalent to our level of service phase 1 studies, to then allow us to begin also recommending projects that will be needed, infrastructure projects that will be needed in all those basins. I like this slide because it summarizes a little bit what we are looking. So when we are talking about infrastructure investments, what were we thinking? What do we think can help us? So seawalls, really protecting against surge and other high water levels there. Raising canal banks, enhancing canal banks as a whole to improve conveyance as well. Flood barriers, different types of flood barriers that we can do throughout the system. Forward pump, really recovering basin discharge, again, in supporting conveyance. We have flap gates, really enhancing basin connectivity and allowing us to move water when we need to different directions. And we have emergency detention basins. We have one at the C4. We are looking at also these options to increase storage in the basin. And of course, we associate all of that with green infrastructure, nature-based features that are so important, so we can also take the most and allow for additional ancillary benefits that we can take as we implement those infrastructure measures. All of those recommendations, project recommendations, are part of our sea level rise and flood resiliency plan. We are on the 4th year of this plan already. The plan was presented to the public on May 29. It's now open for public comments until the end of June. Really, this plan, it's a compilation of all the best project recommendations that we have identified, that our technical team have identified throughout those assessments. And really, with the goal of reducing the risks of flooding, sea level rise, other climate impacts on water resources, and really increasing community and ecosystem resiliency in South Florida. We are moving into implementation of some of the projects that we have identified and prioritized in our plan. Here I showed 3 projects that we have right now, about $800 million in funds to grant awards. This is a combination of our FDP Resilient Florida grant program and the FDM FEMA BREAK program. So out of those 3 projects, 2 are in design, current design. The third one, we are just waiting for a green light to initiate design, all set. And we are also initiating real estate negotiations for the lands that we need for those projects. Great projects, really increasing water management flexibility, integrating green and gray infrastructure, and allowing us, again, to maintain the levels of service that we want on those basins, increase flexibility. There is a lot of benefits coming out of those 3 projects that we are initiating. We have another significant project also funded with Resilient Florida funds. This is what we call self-preservation mode. It's small hardening of the coastal structures. It will take a little bit of time until we get to the full refurbishment, full enhancement of our coastal structures. We have, I would say, about 23 just on the West Coast. So while we move towards those larger projects, we know we can make smaller fixes, electronic components, mechanical components, so kind of protecting, flood-proofing them, adding some gate extensions. So those are the smaller fixes that will allow us to continue to operate those coastal structures while we plan for those major refurbishments that are also needed in those control structures. We are moving. We already have completed design of some components. We have also initiated construction. We are bringing the new components to a few of them, and we have still some of the components that we are finalizing design there. And again, funding from Resilient Florida program at the state. It's very important to also emphasize that a lot of the work we are doing through SERP is providing extensive flood resiliency to the state, mostly when we think about storage that we have, that we are building through the SERP projects, and of course, additional ecosystem restoration that directly allows us to increase, mitigate, to protect against sea level rise and other impacts that we have here, and really build resiliency in South Florida. We also have significant projects and strategies being planned at the different levels. So local governments, we have all different types of strategies, including relocation, acquisition, elevating buildings, flood warning and evacuation. So we work very closely with those local governments as well to align our projects while we move water away and then plan for those hardening strategies, living with the water strategies. We have also beach renourishment, beach extensive, like living shoreline, beach nature-based features that are also being planned that, again, contribute to flood resiliency in all the aspects. And we need to align and understand what's being proposed also at those different levels. And of course, in our major drainage system, we are looking at what else we need to do associated with our roads, the stormwater treatment areas, and everything that we have there. So again, just to get a big picture of how those different investments are being planned in our region to really improve flood protection to all of us. And I'll finish with this slide here on just some of our wet season tools and great innovations that we are bringing. So it's important that as we assess and characterize those flood risks, we also document what has been happening and what are some of the priorities. It's fundamental that we assess those past events to really understand how we can better respond and better plan for those infrastructure investments. So in 2024, we are bringing, we are expanding our capacity of flood survey data crowdsourcing with all the communities. We are asking our local governments to engage with us. They have a much broader public engagement outreach capacity, so we're asking them to also get out and help us on collecting relevant data. So we have made available the survey this data crowdsourcing survey. We have also help from them to document high water mark in those major events. And we also are acquiring satellite data, one of the newest image services that is out there that can help us delineate flood extension. This is from ICEYE. We also had a presentation from them in some of our forums. And we are working with the USGS in some newest technology, rapid deployment gauges and flood sensors that can also help us document that. All of those is being brought and tested in this 2024 wet season. So some of the new innovation and technology that we are bringing to help us in our mission. With that, I will invite Rich to come here and talk a little bit about the flood control system. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolina. Good morning. So I do my annual flood awareness presentation to highlight the hardworking district staff out there. Start off with this photo right here. This is our flagship pump station, S5A. Been in operation since 1955, almost 70 years. Was upgraded and modernized between 2018 and 2022, which included conversion of the big diesel engines to dual fuel. So now they operate on a 80-20 mix of diesel and natural gas. So this picture here, the map on the right depicts the blue, shows the flooding that would have occurred in 1947 when the flood protection system was not installed. You know, we've had many hurricanes over the years, including Hurricane Irma recently, with the flood control system in place. This blue would not even have appeared after that storm if we were reporting on that. So it's very effective in managing floodwaters in the southern half of the peninsula. What we do before and after the storm. Of course, we continuously monitor water levels all year long. And in preparation of the storm, excuse me, we begin to draw down the system in anticipation of heavy rains to provide additional storage and be ready for it. And then after the storm, we route, excess storm waters to storage areas, stormwater treatment areas, and discharge points to provide flood protection. Before the storm, we go out and we strategically start to place equipment and stuff out of harm's way, so we know where the storm's coming. Usually a couple of days before the storm, we'll place heavy equipment and everything out of harm's way so that we can ensure that it's ready to go. We'll set up portable pumps and start fueling up and testing everything and loading everything up in anticipation of having to mobilize these to certain areas. This probably cuts off about 3 days worth of work, once the storm the all clear has been given and we can start mobilizing. Of course, we prepare the field stations, the headquarters, and construction sites throughout the district by securing everything, putting up shutters, and getting ready. We secure our helicopters if it's a major event. in one of our hardened pump stations. And of course, most importantly, we give staff time to go home, prepare their homes, their families, and return to work because it could be for extended shifts. After the storm, one of our biggest activities is clearing debris, get it out of the system, make sure we have capacity within the system, we don't block structures. This picture, as you can see, a lot of the work may have to be done from a barge after the storm, especially like in Big Cypress Basin, because we don't have, you know, a lot of right-of-way. It's very limited, so a lot of the work has to be done from a barge. So this shows the importance of our preventative programs that we have for tree removal throughout the year. Of course, after the storm, when we need to, we start setting up pumps to move water to, you know, and we do this day and night in order to reduce water levels and prevent and minimize flooding. These pictures were from up in the St. Cloud area after Ian. And of course, we use our helicopters for quick assessment of damage and making decisions. We have our annual Hurricane Freddy exercise upstairs where we test ourselves for an unknown event. It kind of gives us the surprise in the morning and what we have to do to go through all the activities. We have missions added to the system and through our web EOC computer software. The hurricane managers are there are Mr. Richard, he tests everybody. He puts missions in that touches every facet of the district so that everybody gets to practice the storm. At this point, after 27 years, I really don't think I need to practice anymore, but I'm still there. So our areas of responsibility for the field station, we have 3 major regions, you know, for our 8 field stations, including the land resources, because there's a lot of activities going on in land resources area as well for flood control and assistance to the field stations. I've got 4 top-notch bureau chiefs that make my job look easy. Here's just some numbers on the district infrastructure of what we have out there. You know, 4,300 miles of canals and levees, over 900 water control structures, over 600 project culverts, 90 pumping stations, and probably before the end of this presentation, we'll have added infrastructure. It's just it's never ending. So to prepare every year and be ready for flood control season, we have an intensive program called the Structure Inspection Program. So every 5 to 7 years, each of the major water control structures and pumping stations is inspected by an engineering team of above in-house staff for mechanical, electrical, civil, structural, and then that team is augmented with contract services for underwater dive inspections. So what we do is we do use all of this data to prioritize repairs, set up our annual work plan for the field station to address the deficiencies. It also helps us prioritize the capital refurbishment program, helps us stay in compliance with state and federal permitting, and the benefits help us reduce emergency work, helps with identifying warranty repairs, trend analysis and such. Here's a nice graph that depicts...
Rich, can I ask you a question?
Sure, you can.
Do the divers wear cameras?
Yes, they do.
I'd love to see what they see.
Okay.
I mean, not everything, but I'd like to, I'd like to see some snippets.
I think Ms. Roman's come out on a dive inspection in BCB. So the camera is connected to a computer in a trailer, and then the diver is being directed by a professional engineer to scope out everything that he's seeing, report it back to the engineer to take notes about the deficiencies, measure things, chip away at things, and really check out the facility really well. It's very interesting.
It would be really helpful, at least to me, if you guys could put together just a short video of some of the things or what it looks like. I mean, how fascinating is that, right? The difference between looking at some of these old structures I'd
Right.
also like to see what else is down there. But it would be fascinating to see what the old structures actually look like, just a small snippet.
Sure. And like I said, we'd love to have you stop out. We have stuff that happens in Palm Beach and Martin counties that would be convenient for you to come out even for an hour and take a look while the diver's
I'd
in the
love
water.
to. Invite me, I'll come.
Excellent. So like I was saying, at the end of the inspection program, the engineering group, they assigned a C rating for the structure, 1 through 5. 1 is like a new structure, and a 5 is something that needs repair or work within a year's time frame. So as part of our strategic plan, most of these repairs and items come to the field station to be addressed. Some of them have to go to capital and over to engineering to become actual projects because they're larger in scope. But of the ones that come to the field station, our matrix is to complete 90% of those deficiencies within the year's time frame, but we strive to hit 100. And there's a little competition that goes on between different field stations to brag and hit that 100 mark. The graphing here depicts the number of the C ratings for the different structures over quite a time frame from FY11 through last year. We do, keep our C5s in check, but you can see that the C4s and C3s have grown over time. I think that's a artifact of the aging infrastructure that we're facing and the need for refurbishment out there. It also, you have to keep in mind over this time frame, we've probably added well over 200 water control structures and many pumping stations to the system as well. So with that data, we use that to work on our program. So we have a major engine and pump overhaul program that the field stations do. We do a lot of the removal and installs ourselves. This picture here depicts one of the large pump stations for STA 34, the pump discharge head being loaded out for transport to the refurbishment facility. Here's some of the district staff out at the refurbishment facility in Pasadena, Texas, doing what we call site inspection of the work to make sure everything's being done correctly and that when the pump returns, it's going to operate as intended for the next 20 years and all the work was done pursuant to the plans and specifications. We have more preventative maintenance work that we do on a lot of our main engines. Here's Frank Johnson changing out a cylinder head at S9 pump station. Under our resiliency grant, we received money to replace the engine control panels at 5 of our major pumping stations in the Everglades Ag area. Michael Mills from the Clueston Field Station here is working with the factory representative to test and start up one of the new panels at pump station S8, which is an outflow pump station for STA 34. Here's staff working to refurbish the final pump at S356 that's out on the Tamiami Trail. This is a big part of moving water south. This station will be replaced in the future, but we do have to keep it operational in the interim. So we do the install and removal, and we actually do the transport. These pumps were being refurbished over in Tampa. We have our dredge program. I highlight this each year. It's a big program that we have up in the Okeechobee area. Right now, we're working on the C25, 24, 23 system to ensure it's ready once all those new reservoirs and SDAs are put online. There's Michael Farmer and Ethan Tuberville standing next to the 5-yard bucket. Kind of gives you a good scale of how large that is. So these are aerial photos. I hope you can see this in here. You can see the berming along the side of the canal. So we have to construct a containment cell or containment system to put the dredge material in so that it doesn't just run off and go back into the canal, cause turbidity issues. So we take the existing spoil, clear it, split it, and make it ready to receive the dredge material. And then once it's placed in there, we will back slope all of this and clean it up and actually sod it out and return the whole system to like new. Here's the same crew following up behind the C40 dredge project to do bank stabilization on that canal. Here's crews up in St. Cloud working to stabilize a bank on the C-23G canal by placing filter fabric and riprap and stuff. This project was done in conjunction with the county up there because they just replaced the new pedestrian bridge and stuff, and we got it all completed with them. We have a project culvert replacement program. Like I said earlier, there's over 600 in the system. So when the canals were originally dug, right, project culverts are installed to drain and provide flood protection to the adjacent land. Because what you don't want is the adjacent land sheet flowing over the top of the banks and eroding the canal out. It has to have controlled discharge points to the canals. So a series of many, many culverts are installed to do this. They're aging out. This one was over 50 years old. The West Palm Beach Field Station crew completed this installation this dry season. Land management assists us a lot in our maintaining their public lands and drainage systems within their infrastructure as well. Here's James Elmore cleaning the ditch up at Harmony Ranch. Land management's veg section supports the field station with the tree removal program along our canals. I love this picture of Ryan celebrating the downing of one of these dangerous hazardous Australian pine trees. The veg program also supports us with mechanical harvesting contract services. This was work that was done down on the C-111 canal system this year. We did a lot of harvesting down there. This improves the flow conveyance and also helps us reduce herbicide use in those canals. A right-of-way section also supports us quite a bit, making sure that what we permit gets built correctly, and they also look for encroachments and things that could block the system and cause problems. They also are key to us prior to a storm to make sure that contractors that are building bridges and doing things out there within the system secure their stuff prior to a storm and make sure that we don't get debris in a canal that could cause issues. We have a huge fleet department with many different types of equipment that we have to maintain, not only maintain the system, but we also have, the water quality people are supported by our fleet group and all of the district staff. Here's one of our road graders that's used to grade roads and maintain them. You can just see the extensive amount of equipment and things that we have. We do most of our own fleet maintenance in-house within the 8 field stations throughout the 16 counties. Of course, newer vehicles go back for warranty work and things when they're newer and under warranty. So the field station also supports restoration projects. So about a month ago, John gave us a call, asked us if we could bring up some pumps to help hydrate and begin the growing up at the new STA 1 West Expansion 2. So we had purchased these high flow 18-inch pumps after Ian, and we brought them up here, all 4 of them, to install and begin the hydration. Here's 2 of them installed in cell 9 up there out in the EA at the 1 West Expansion 2. So there's 2 in cell 9, 1 in 10, 1 in 11, and then a feeder pump from the Hillsborough Canal into the system, that 42. This is a drone shot that's being done weekly to check the hydration. You can see here it's working pretty effectively. I think we're about 2/3 full at this point of this cell and the remaining cells. The last little bit will be a little more challenging because of the elevation changes within the cell, but we hope to accomplish it. Here's some big work that we're doing down in South Dade right now. So the 332 B and C pump stations are aging out, and we need to keep them operational as part of modified water deliveries until the new pump stations are built. So as you can see in this picture, we had a pipe failure out there, and we've been repairing these for several years, but it got to the point where what we decided to do was remove them completely. We're going to build an above ground canal to channel the water out to the impoundment area. So here in this picture, you can see the field station has uncovered all of the pipes, started to build the lifts for the containment levee on each side of the existing pipes and began the removal. As of last week, we're about 80% complete in the removal of the pipes. And then once they're out, we'll then go ahead and finish off the containment area. We were able to find a scrap guy up in Okeechobee who's coming down and picking all of the scrap material up for disposal. It's saving us quite a bit of money that if we had to dispose of these ourselves. So we also, this was a team of the month this year. We built the G775 pump station. This pump station is going to help us, enable us to bring lake water over to STA 56, which was never been able to be done prior. So here's the guys in the early stage just driving the H-pile supports. Here's a completed photo of the pump station with the three 100 CFS electric pumps. I was talking to Robert. He just was giving me some statistics. The crew chief, 450 pounds of welding rod went into building this. So we'll highlight a little bit on the BCB field station in that basin. They move close to 1 million acre-feet of water over there annually as well. So this is just these 4 slides just kind of go through a quick what we do to do a major gate overhaul. And think of this as that we probably have 200 or 300 of these within the system, and they all at a 10 to 15-year cycle have to be overhauled. So the field stations do the removal and packaging up, and then over in West Palm Beach at our facility, we do the overhaul, and then they bring it back for reinstallation. So the guys are setting the dewatering panels so that we can pull the water out to remove the gate and block the flow while the gate is out. All the different components have to be removed and taken down for refurbishment. The whole thing is done. The electronics, or if it's hydraulic or whatever it is, it's all going to get refurbished. They get it all cleaned up. They chain it all down on a low buoy, and they get it shipped over to West Palm. At that point, over at the West Palm field station, they have their machine shop, blast shop, welding shop, painting shop, and they go through and make the gate look like new, and then it's packaged back up, shipped back to the field station, and they do the reinstallation. And this probably happens, we probably are doing, on a good year, we're doing 20 or so a year. As we know, BCB has a lot of challenges with their smaller, shallower canals with a lot of vegetation. So here's a before, during, and after cleanup of the Miller Canal. Here's the last of the 4 pumps for the Merritt Pump Station finally being installed after the refurbishment and replacement of the shafting. Here's the team that did the removal and install. And then we start to, this part of the presentation, I'm just going to be showing slides of all of the staff and the hard work that they do at the 8 different field stations right away in our flight department. So I'll just try to run through this quickly for you. If you have want to stop me at any point to ask a question about what they're doing, go ahead. But here's Michael, he's a heavy equipment operator. Christopher down in Homestead working towboat in the system down there. Here's Zach and Jorge hauling material with dump trucks that we have down in Homestead. These guys are supporting that pipe removal project. Here's Chuck changing a big tire. Here's Brian setting stop logs for a gate removal project in Homestead. Here's Amanda Olio working, that's called a dresser coupler. It's like a flex coupler for a pump that helps you align it through the pump wall. And Frank testing the gate. Here's the 2 ladies that really run the Miami field station. Yordanka and Lenora doing their job. Here's Antoine doing some welding on one of the pumps from 356. And our 2 industrial electricians working on the G420 pump station, which fills the C4 impoundment. Francisco, working one of the canals over in BCB, Henderson Creek with the veg problems that we face. Here's Mako digging a trench in support of a SCADA project to lay conduit for telemetry work and automation of one of the structures. Here's the guys working on that Merritt pump, Josh, Andrea, Eric, Adam on that reinstall. Here's Adam working on some INC on an engine control panel. You can see that panel, just how sophisticated and how much work is inside that thing. There's Josh doing some work on a diesel engine. Jorge working on one of our slope mowers. Kenny changing a prop out on one of our towboats. There's Maggie, one of our seasoned professionals at the Fort Lauderdale Field Station. She's a planner scheduler for us. She's been with us about 30 years. There's Bo doing some welding on an awning. We got Eric doing a brake job on a trailer setup in Fort Lauderdale, and Willio working a trash truck in Fort Lauderdale. These two guys are working, Robert and Trey are working on pumps out at the restoration, the two STAs for part of the expansion project at One West and a drawdown at One East that do work in there. There's Christopher, he was the crane operator for that pump removal that I showed earlier at G372. There's JT and Tom out at the SDA2 plug project. There's Rich Smith following up behind a tree program. Sometimes after we take trees down and we clear the bank, there's stumps and debris and stuff that's left behind. So the canal levee crew will come in, do removals, smooth the bank out, do sodding work and stuff like that to restore the bank. There's Allison, she's a planner scheduler for us. SAP is a big part of how we do business. And she's working, ordering things and scheduling for the plug project. Here we are working on a heavy equipment in the field out of the Clewiston Field Station, and Max doing some preventative work on a gate actuator. That's Sheriff Bucks. He's the chief operator at G370, which is an inflow pump station to STA 34. Steve Coughlin doing levee work out for Clewiston. Clayton loading up heavy equipment for transport. And Nancy over here performing more planner scheduler activities. Ricky's putting a new pile cap on a sheet pile wall, and Chris was replacing a actuator seal. Cindy processing work orders as a planner scheduler. Owen over here greasing up a gate stem. Rocky and Robbie both working on different gates out at Okeechobee. John's doing the shoal removal at G103 up in Kissimmee State Park. Scott Henderson managing business at St. Cloud. Jetson working on pump installation at 59. And Mike closing up a gate at G748. A couple more guys doing office work and scheduling and taking care of business at St. Cloud. Nathan and Donald. There's Sherry, right-of-way technician, following up on a vertical clearance for an FP&L line. And there's Chris Crichton, our supervisor out of the Miami area for right-of-way, approving an online permit. Here's our two mechanics at the flight center, Ivan and James, doing their duties to make sure that the helicopters fly safely. And coming to an end, here's James and JK, our two senior pilots that make sure we fly safely and get all of our missions completed. And with that, I'm down to the end. And if you have any questions.
No, thanks very much, Rich.
I know
Sure.
that was a lot.
It was a lot. Now I see where your 150 million goes, Drew. Do we have any comments?
We have none, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Is there board comments or questions? You can, absolutely. Ms. Meads?
Wow, what hard work.
It is hard
Right?
work.
I mean, that is, now we're back to the hot and sunny, right? That's hot, sunny, hard work. I'm really grateful. What an amazing work that is. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you.
You gave us that nice integrated, big picture view of everything we're doing on flood control and future resilience. I didn't get a feel for timeframe
So, of course, it will depend on funding. We lay out the projects on a 12-year schedule, and we prioritize them. But again, we are working on all the different funding sources, all the money that is available right out there for us to be able to expedite implementation of that. But I would say we need to start thinking at least 15 years for us to be able to get all those projects initiated. Yeah, we have a very good, I would say, we were even recognized by the way we have been doing prioritization. In the plan, we have a process that we look, yes, the very first and top criteria is what is the level of service is telling us in terms of the risk that was detected in the basin. We also look at the population impacted, the area of influence for the project. We have well fields there. Those coastal structures also protect well fields, so we want to look at them. We look at critical infrastructure. That's something that is very embedded in the Resilient Florida program on every kind of resiliency strategy. So what are the essential functions on that community that need to remain functioning? So we look at flood risks to those critical infrastructure, and we kind of use that to prioritize all the projects. So we have a set of criteria in the plan. We do extensive GIS analysis in each of the project impact areas, and we rank them with some of the weights that we derive from the Resilient Florida program. Yeah, thank you.
No, it wasn't. Does anyone else have questions or comments? Thanks. Thank you all. And thank you for reminding us what we were founded to do and what we do so well. And you know, Everglades restoration gets an awful lot of attention, and so do some other things we do, but flood control is really the core of it. And you do it so well that no one even notices. So, and that's a good thing. Loosening. We'll do the C-43 reservoir.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chair and fellow board members. I'll be providing an update on the construction progress of the C-43 Caloosahatchee Reservoir. Basically, between the months of September of my last update to current, and in addition to get your authorization for additional authority to keep this project's momentum moving forward to completion. And as a reminder, here are some of the benefits of this comprehensive Everglades restoration project or plan that's located in Hendry County. Captures the excess basin water, captures releases from Lake Okeechobee, as well as improving salinity balance in the estuary by capturing those peak flows during the wet season and providing essential flows during the dry season. I would say that with any project that is even a restoration project, also provides that flood control. So it's a great project all around. So a reminder of some of the project stats. This is a 2-cell reservoir, about 10,500 acres, 170,000 acre feet. And package 1 prepared the site for 6 critical structures. Package 2 constructed the irrigation pump station. Package 3 built the inflow pump station, and Package 4 is the reservoir embankment, 19 miles of embankment, perimeter canal, 14 water control structures, an additional pump station, Townsend Canal improvements along the western side here, also a pressure relief system on the west end of the reservoir, and then local and site access bridges so that across these waterways you can access the reservoir. We will also have recreation features in the future with a boat ramp for managed activities within the reservoir and equestrian access around the perimeter road. This embankment is approximately, on average, 33 feet in height. It stores up to 22 feet of water and has a 10-foot drop from the southeast to the northwest corner of the site. So, like I said, I'm providing updates from basically the end of August of the last presentation. So this structure discharges water from cell 1. So this is cell 1 in the perimeter canal. and we're looking north. So this foundation was in progress, showing a checkerboard pattern here of how we were pouring the concrete for the foundation. And now you can see most of the concrete work is complete, and we're ready to backfill this embankment that comes across this section of the structure. And you can see the perimeter canal here to the left, and we still need to construct, in this picture, the discharge, the riprap. So the reservoir design requires soil cement for wave erosion protection on the interior embankment slopes, and the contractor that we've procured has 3 batch plants, which is 3 times greater than the original work that was being done. And they're working both cells simultaneously, and we're aiming for a December 2024 completion of the soil cement. It's approximately 19 miles. And as you can see, we've made great progress since almost a year ago, from this is a July picture to May. We are looking south. This is the separator dam, and this is the south embankment. And now we're looking along that same location, but we're looking north, and you can see how this is, that we're moving north along this segment to get this work done. So in terms of construction for the soil cement, I'd like to describe like how that's kind of put together in general terms. We initially install a buttress at the bottom. It's like a footer of a building, and that holds the soil cement in place. And then we add filter sand, filter fabric, we place the soil cement and roll it. So to date, we've completed 18.5 miles of the buttress and 6 miles of the soil cement slope plate for a total of 19 miles along the interior slopes of the embankment. The previous contractor's work only had 1 operational plant, and they averaged about 90 linear feet per day and had a total of 4,700 linear feet installed by the time they left. So the current contractor is averaging about 500 to 600 linear feet per day of placement of the soil cement. So we're making great progress. This is the divide structure between cell 1 and cell 2. It moves that water as we're going to have initial fill in the 2025. In August, we were still building this operating platform and still pouring the caps on the wall, and we were coordinating with the gate manufacturer for their design and installation. And now you can see the structure is complete. We've backfilled the embankment, and you can see the soil cement coming up from the south. I showed you that picture earlier, and that's coming up to meet that structure. So making great progress. This is the inflow pump station, which was completed as package 3, but it has additional work that's required that's outside of that package that's in the embankment package, and that includes tying in the intake canal to the Townsend Canal, as well as building the discharge structure into the reservoir. So we held a ribbon cutting back in December. This was a great moment. And you can see back in December, we were starting to build the discharge structure. This is a view where we're excavating out the balance of the intake bay. And you can see this is an access bridge that will go over the intake bay, and then the Townsend Canal will be below to the outside of the picture. You can see the perimeter canal, you can see cell 1, and you can see the discharge structure being built and the tower that was previously constructed. Here's a nighttime picture of the discharge structure, well, actually sunrise. And the discharge into the reservoir uses a saxophone-style culvert that goes up and over the embankment. In this picture, all 4 of the culverts are installed, and on average, we're pouring 200 cubic yards per week. It's once a week, and 200 cubic yards that night to morning. As I mentioned last presentation about this, that all concrete pours occur early morning to take advantage of the weather and cooler temperatures for concrete placement. We all know how hot it's getting, so as we continue that work. And just a tidbit, the amount of work, concrete needed for this work required CEMEX deliveries from both LaBelle and Fort Myers concrete plants to keep this project moving. So this is a discharge structure out of cell 2 and discharges into the perimeter canal on the north side. So back in August, we were placing concrete for the walls. This is the discharge side of the structure. And then cell 2 would be above, looking, so we're looking south. So the structure is complete. We've made great progress again. We are still working on the discharge. You can see they're working on the riprap for the discharge. We still need to tie in the embankment over the structure. Here's an emergency overflow structure. This one's out of cell 1. In September, we were still framing the structure for concrete pours. And now you can see the discharge is complete, the structure, the embankment is complete. All that's left is bringing the soil cement down the interior face and then removing the plug. This is the cell 2 emergency overflow. We are still, back in August, we were still working on this structure as well as the embankment. And we are looking south with the stair steps in the foreground here. And we haven't completed the riprap yet. Now with the completed structure, you see the riprap in place, the embankment, and then it's just east of the separator dam. And you can see there's a segment of soil cement coming its way. And then the perimeter canal, we're looking west. So to operate the inflow pump station and pull water into the reservoir, that design requires prevention of erosion along this canal bank. And so what's required is a sheet pile along the west side and then riprap along the east side. This picture is looking north. It's north of the pump station, and the State Road 80 is out in the distance. And then there's an existing community over here on the left. So to date, we've installed 3,200 linear feet of the sheet pile on the west side of the required 4,000 linear feet. And this work had not commenced in my last update. So this is new work. In addition, I mentioned on the west side of the reservoir, there's a pressure relief system. This is required because of the high head differential between the reservoir and the Townsend Canal. A pressure relief system on the eastern bank provides an engineered of the Townsend Canal provides an engineered solution to collect and drain the seepage water in a safe and controlled manner. Sand relief columns were previously installed along this entire length. You can see this is older construction. So all of the sand relief columns are in place. Now we're working on the manifold system that ties into those sand relief columns. And we've executed one contract in the north, and so that work is ongoing. And then in addition, we have some additional contracts that we've received quotes and we'll be executing shortly. So because this site is so large and it's hard to appreciate the amount of work that has taken place, let me walk you through this amazing video of the progress we have on site. We're starting in the northwest corner of the reservoir. We're flying over the pump station. You can see the discharge canal, the embankment, and the perimeter canal. And this is cell 1. You can see a lot of construction activity. This is flying over the other direction, the discharge structure, the intake bay, and we're working towards the Townsend Canal along this tree line. You can see the sheet pile work, and you can see us digging the canal. This is S483, which is a perimeter discharge canal structure being constructed adjacent to the pump station. You can see the intake canal. Oh, we've moved on, sorry, apologize. This is the emergency overflow structure. This is a discharge structure. This is looking into cell 1. This is the perimeter canal. This is a site access bridge that allows us to cross the perimeter canal. We're looking north. Now we're looking west. You can see all the improvements. This is one of the overflow weirs. That's the discharge. This is looking the other direction. This is the divide structure with the embankment backfilled. You can see the soil cement coming towards us. Another view, looks amazing. And inside the structure. This is the 481 complex, which delivers water around the reservoir to the Banana Branch Canal. This is looking at the reservoir, and this is down the perimeter canal. This is an irrigation pump station providing water supply to the Roberts Canal, and you can see it's already operational and delivering water. So a lot of great progress. So an overall construction status of, as you know, packages 1, 2, and 3 are complete. 18.5 miles of the dam embankment are complete. 14 of the 15 miles of the perimeter canal are complete. 13 of the 14 water control structures. The pump station is substantially complete, the one that I just showed you. Townsend Canal improvements, the sheet piling is 80% complete. We still need to start the riprap on the east bank of the Townsend Canal. And the pressure relief system is 50% complete. We're mostly done with the local and site access bridges. And then the recreation features will start after we commence initial fill. So in this picture, this is a discharge structure. You can see the quality of the concrete work, and our stellar construction manager, John Cresswell, here in the yellow safety vest, and our procurement bureau chief, Johanna Labrada, in the pink vest and hard hat. We have an amazing team out there in regards to, our consulting firms, JTech and Black & Veatch, as well as all their sub-consultants, and many others. It's a very large team that's making this project happen. A lot of people have, moved to LaBelle to work and get this project done. They know how important this is to us. So we are driving the project to finish as early as possible and get the facility in operation before the wet season of 2025. So to continue our progress on the reservoir and construction, here's a resolution for your consideration for authorizing an additional budgetary amount.
Great. Thank you very much, Lisa. You've made tremendous progress in the last 9 months. I really appreciate it. Is there public comment on this one, Molly?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We'll hear first from Caitlin Newcamp, followed by Dan DeLisi.
Good morning, Chair and governing board members. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Caitlin Newcamp with Audubon. From the very beginning, Audubon has supported and worked for the effective planning and construction of the C-43 West Basin Storage Reservoir. It is a necessary part of restoring the dry season salinity balance in the Caloosahatchee estuary and will help secure consistent flows to the Caloosahatchee in crucial times. This vital SERP project will provide a significant part of the water storage required for the basin, up to 55 billion gallons. Because this watershed is impaired for nitrogen and has a deficit of natural watershed storage capacity, these fresh and estuarine waters have suffered from repeated harmful algal blooms. Fortunately, this reservoir will help combat them by reducing discharges, which will also benefit downstream communities. We understand the challenges that have faced this project to date, and we are pleased that this budgetary increase will not result in additional timeline changes. Audubon, Florida remains committed to working with Army Corps in the district to assure the C-43 meets its water quality and salinity restoration objectives. The challenges of nutrient pollution are not unique to this reservoir, watershed, or even Florida itself, and we must pursue comprehensive solutions to these issues as we continue to attack Everglades restoration. Audubon and our partners continue to support the C-43 reservoir, and we recommend that the board approve this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Newcamp. We'll hear next from Dan DeLisi.
So I'm here on behalf of Lee County today. I'm just in awe. This is, that was an amazing presentation, Lucene. I know they're watching online. We've been texting. They're in awe. We had the opportunity in January to, with City of LaBelle staff, City of Sanibel staff, to visit the C-43, the construction. So first off, thank you for putting the best project manager on it, John Creswell. Love the guy. Going from one asphalt plant to 3, tripling the asphalt production, but 5 to 6 times the pace of laying down the sand cement. I mean, it's just amazing. It's absolutely amazing what you all have done. And I said this after we took our trip. You all have demonstrated this was an opportunity, and you took it, took the bull by the horns, and you demonstrated that you don't have to be a big bureaucratic agency. You could be nimble. You can change course when it's not going well, and you can expedite this project. We're all watching on the West Coast. We love this project. We need to get done. Thank you, Drew, for your leadership. John, for yours. Lucene, for everything you're doing on it. It's amazing. We need this to get done as quickly as possible. Most of the benefits we get in Losum are because of this reservoir. We need to see this online. We need to see this operational. Thank you, board, and thank you, Chauncey Goss, for your leadership on this board and making sure this gets done. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. DeLisi. Mr. Chairman, we have no additional public comment on this item.
No, thank you for your comments. We'll go to a board comment now. Questions, discussion? Anyone? Mr. Steinle?
Thanks, Lucene. Yeah, I just, as Dan said, I think this is, post terminating the contractor, I think you guys are showing the results that we all originally expected on a better timeline than we originally expected. So kudos to the team for doing the work, and I like the description nimbly and efficiently. If we can just talk, since the numbers matter, the dollars matter, we approved an addition last September of about $104 million. At the time, I think that was to bring us to substantial completion. Am I right about that?
That's
And now we're being asked for, we're voting on another 60,000, or excuse me, I wish it was 1,000, 60 million. So that, again, I'm just making the assumption, we expect that to, and now have a high level of confidence, given the progress we've made, to bring us to substantial completion.
That's correct.
And that would be, I think you told me around May, around the start of the wet season next year.
Correct. We will be doing initial fill starting in May of 2025.
Okay. So in the context, and the reason I'm talking about this, excuse me, in the context of dollars, a 60% increase on what we originally voted is a lot. I also want to put it in the context of the original contract being bid on in 2018, right? 2018, where the original estimate was about 800, and then the bids were between, call it 425 and 900.
Like 523 and 900.
523 and 9. So with this additional approval of 60 million, the all-in cost would be?
761 is the total authority.
Okay. With this, that we're voting on today. Okay, so still below the original estimate of about 800 million. I don't want to minimize the cost of this massive project. This was the first project that we all voted on when we came in. And, unfortunately, we got assurances from the original contractor based on their bid that they were confident in their ability to to move forward and complete the project at the cost and the time that was assumed. But I also, and we discussed this in the briefing, if we were to bid this out today, given cost of materials, given cost of labor, I would assume what we'd expect would be much, much higher than the original estimate. So I just want to put that in perspective, again, not to minimize the total cost, but just to sort of talk through, in my own mind, where we are with, in addition to the to what we approved last year, but still below the original estimate from 2018. Thanks.
Jay, thanks very much for that clarification. I think that helps all of us understand exactly where we are. And from a resident of the West Coast, I want to reiterate what Mr. DeLisi said, which is this is a project we all care very deeply about. We were all very discouraged it was going so slowly, and I think we're all thrilled that you've if not caught up, you're getting there. And I'm going to hold you to within a year. So, does anyone have any further comment on this?
Chauncey, I just got to say, it's just Sanibel, Fort Myers, one more wet season, one more dry season. That's all you got to hold on to.
All right.
For this reservoir to get in, and I don't know that you can put a value on that.
No.
That's exciting stuff.
It is. If one of you'd like to make a motion?
I move to approve.
Thank you.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve. Is there further discussion by the board? Hearing none, call that question. Mr. Steinle?
Yes.
Ms. Meads?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez? Colonel Roman?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Mr. Martinez? Thank you. That passes unanimously.
Yes.
And there we go. Very unanimously.
Mr. Chair, I'll move 240613.
I thought we just did that.
Oh, did we do both of them?
Oh, there's two?
There's
I'm
two.
sorry.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a motion. You have a second on that?
Sorry,
Wait.
are we hearing from Mary Cruz, or? No?
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Jay? You good? Okay. Everyone good? I have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Hearing none on that, we'll call that question. Mr. Steinle?
Yes.
Ms. Meads?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez?
Wait. Yes.
Thank you. Colonel Roman?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to vote yes. That passes unanimously as well. Thank you very much for
Thank
listening.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. We'll go now to technical reports. Mr. Mitnick, Mr. Glenn.
All right. Morning, everyone. So start where we usually do, looking back at the rainfall. You can see there the month of May pretty much dried up during the month of May. So far this month of June, we haven't had that much rain either. However, you'll see towards the end of the presentation, I'll talk a little bit about the forecast and how that may be changing. So just going back to the last 2 months, both of them were a deficit or a shortfall of what you would normally expect during those months for average rainfall. So how that is played out over the district itself, you can see here on the left-hand side, the month of May, only got about 41% of what you typically get during the month of May for rainfall district-wide. And you can see it kind of breaks down pretty evenly for the most part over the water management district, with some exceptions here in Broward County, and then the outliers, Upper Kissimmee, Upper East Coast, and then the Southwest Coast. Overall, for the month of May, it turned out it was actually the 5th driest month of May since 1991, and the 9th driest month of May since 1932 for the district itself. So over here on the right-hand side, just finishing up the dry season, so a little foreshadowing. The dry season is over. And you'll see here on a upcoming slide of when the wet season actually started, but this is how the dry season finished up overall. Pretty much overall, from October there to May 12th, you had right about average rainfall at about 98%. So typical average dry season for the most part. Spatially, however, it tells a different story, especially when you look down here at Everglades National Park and how much water and direct rainfall it received versus up there in upper Kissimmee. So kind of see how rainfall patterns changed throughout the course of the dry season, while overall it was average through the 16 counties. But where you lived mattered and how much rain that you actually saw in your backyard. So, wet season. Welcome to the wet season. District meteorologist called the start of the wet season there on May 13th. This graphic sort of shows over the years where the wet season has started. It started as early as May 4th and as late as June 13th. For the most part, things tend to fall here in this 25 to 75th percentile orange shaded box when the wet season starts. But we are just a little bit earlier than usual there on the May 13th start for this year, with the median start of the wet season right there around May 24th. But all that being said, we're in the wet season. We've seen those seasonal weather patterns that are indicative of the wet season. Caveat is, hasn't really rained since May 13th, but this is the wet season, believe it or not. So how's that played out for the upper chain of lakes? Up there in the top right-hand side, East Lake Toho, levels have come down. It got down to the bottom of South Summer Pool. Then this is the time of year where the regulation schedule jumps up. So you can expect all of these lakes, East Lake, West Lake, even Lake Kissimmee, all got down to all their pools. And so for the next foreseeable future, coming weeks, months, those water levels will start to increase and water levels will start to come back up as we work their way back up to their regulation schedules for what is soon to be those typical wet season rainfall. Similar story down there in Lake Istapoga. You can see it has gone down and it's approaching some of these lines down here without getting into too much detail. Basically what that means is that starts calling for the water supply deliveries out of Lake Istapoga to the Indian Prairie Basin up in here. But also the district has started using 2 pump stations down here on these canals, G207 and G208, to pull water from Lake Okeechobee back up into the basin for not only tribal water supply, but also basin water supply. So with that, Lawrence.
Thank you. Looking at the Kissimmee River, as John said, where water comes from is the upper basin, and those lakes have all come down. We like to maintain 310 or about 300 CFS or more for the river for dissolved oxygen. A characteristic of rivers is they like to flow, or else they'd be long linear lakes. So we maintain this flow primarily to maintain the appropriate levels of dissolved oxygen within the river channel. And if we look over here, we'll see, do I have, right here, this is dissolved oxygen currently. It's 8 milligrams per liter, which is fantastic for this time of year.
So looking at the projections moving down to Lake Okeechobee, as always, this is the dynamic position analysis that we've used. Again, this is looking backwards in time and using historical rainfall to predict what future rainfall may look like. This will probably be not the last, but in July, you'll be seeing this graphic again from the dynamic position analysis, but probably when we get out into August, I'll be switching more to the conditional position analysis, which is the next slide, this slide, from that point forward. All of this information is always available on the district's website, so anybody that is still interested in the dynamic position analysis, you of course can go to our website and get all of these slides in the presentation and in the PDF that we put out on our website. But for board presentations, probably around the August time frame, I'll probably start moving more towards this graphic as opposed to the dynamic one. Yes, Mr. Butler.
John, just look at the difference between the conditional and the positional. Looks like conditional wise, you're expecting more rain than historically? I just looking at that 50% trend line where it crosses 15 foot, where on the other two, it did not cross 15 foot. So I guess,
I'll back up one. So the other thing that I'll do, one of the reasons why I'll probably be switching to the conditional in the August timeframe is everybody, I'm sure, is aware that the Corps of Engineers has promulgated the final environmental impact statement associated with the Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual, LOSIM. And barring any unforeseen circumstances, more than likely that would be driving towards an August implementation of that new regulation schedule for Lake Okeechobee. Right now, of course, the regulation schedule is still LORS 2008, but looking out into the future, probably around the August timeframe, again, barring any unforeseen circumstances, that Lake Okeechobee System Operating Manual will be the official lake regulation schedule. So when you look there, Mr. Butler, to answer your question, here you're just below 15 feet on October 1st for that 50th probability line, and then jumping to the conditional, it is a little bit higher, and you're probably right at 15 feet there on October 1st. So it does take into what is anticipated to be a little bit above average, and you'll see that later on in the presentation, above average wet season. So to account for that forecast from the Climate Prediction Center, that's why this conditional analysis brings in that above average, little bit more wetter scenario than what the overall historical rainfall had been.
John, as we go forward and as you make the transition, you know, I mean, there's some different variables that go into this scenario, the conditional scenario. Is there a way just kind of have a little, just without complicating things, just a little chart of, I don't know, future predictions versus historical, you know, the differences between the two, or is that, you know, I mean, just,
okay,
you know, based on what we've seen in history versus what we're predicting, you know, what the conditional predicts in the future, maybe what the differences may be.
All right.
And just in a one slide or one
All
little
right.
box.
Yeah, we can definitely take that back and see if we can come up with something. As you know, your staff is very talented, and I'm sure they'll find a way to represent and display it in an understandable way.
Yeah.
Question, what's the perfect lake level at the end of the wet season going into the dry season? What would you see as just a perfect lake level?
So one of the things that
With LOSIM, go ahead.
So we're, as you could probably guess, we're in that transition, as Mr. Butler called it, right now. Wet season has started. We haven't really seen the rains. There's a forecast for some rains next week that you'll see towards the end of this presentation. So we're in that funny area, so to speak. When you look at Lake Okeechobee now, you've already heard it some in the public comments already this morning, talking about the lake. Some advocates are looking for a lake to have a recovery and get down into that recovery band, which is a little bit lower. Lawrence, you'll see in some of his slides, the lake has just entered the normal ecological band, but it is not, it is still above that recovery band, which is what all of the performance metrics are calling for right now for Lake Okeechobee's health. Again, Lawrence will talk a little bit more about that. But as I said, you're in the wet season, hasn't started raining. There's a forecast for some rain next week. But based on what you see in all the lakes above it to the north, that water's not going to make it to Lake Okeechobee, even just from that one rainfall event. Kissimmee River has been so dry, as you see on all of this red, it's going to absorb a lot of that rainfall. So even with the significant rain event that we'll experience probably early next week, Tuesday and Wednesday, there's not going to generate a whole lot of runoff down into Lake Okeechobee. So you're in the funny time of year. You don't know what the rest of the wet season plays out. You've got a forecast for above average rainfall for the rest of the wet season through October. You've got a forecast for a more active hurricane season as well, but you don't know where those hurricanes are going to land. When you jump out a little bit farther and you start looking at the next window in January to March of 25, everything is pointing towards that La Nina below average rainfall, and all of those are a 40 to 50% chance of having below average rainfall for the entire district. So you want to be able to, in this funny time, one of the things that we've got to consider is in making lake decisions and lake management is we all know we want to maintain those beneficial flows to the Caloosahatchee and sustain that ecosystem as well. The Everglades that Lawrence will talk about here shortly is also drying up, and it's been drying down, and those water levels are seeing. So we're maintaining the flows moving south. The district is doing somewhere between 600 and 800 cubic feet per second of water moving south from the lake through the stormwater treatment areas being delivered to the Everglades. You keep on, so it gets back to how are we positioning the lake, as your question is, how are we positioning the lake for that future dry season, and not knowing really what the future rainfall may look like. So that's the analysis and the deliberations that your staff is going through right now.
So the reason I'm asking is I've been out on Indian River twice in the past month to see the submerged vegetation, because the local people there are very concerned about the health there after these discharges. And it is also, you know, critically damaged there compared to what it has been. And I'm just worried about discharges to the east this coming year, and also wondering how we're going to avoid what happened last year.
Yeah, it's going to largely be dependent on how the rest of the wet season plays out and what that hurricane season looks like. So looking at this forecast here, as I said, 50% chance of being at 15 feet on October 1st and coming out of the wet season. The upper end of that is you've got a 10% chance of having those discharges that you were just talking about to the estuaries being up there in zone BC should LOSUM be the regulation schedule at that time. But if everything really dries up, then you've got a 10% chance of being down in the water shortage management ban around the same time. One of the things that we look at, and you'll see this, I can touch on it a little bit more in the future slide when we talk about the stormwater treatment areas, and that one graphic, and on the bottom of it has all the years that have been highlighted as La Nina years. It's that transition when you go from an El Nino year back to a La Nina years. That is where it gets uncertain. And looking back in history, that is when you've expected to have those wet season rains to fill up the lake, and sometimes they don't really materialize as you would hope they would have. That's why when we talk at this wet season, it started May 13th, but we haven't really had any rain yet. We're going to get a good rain event on Tuesday, Wednesday next week, but not really sure what the future looks like after that.
So our ability to move water south, how has that changed in the past 5 years? You know, is there any, so Bergeron said last time, well, you know, can't you just move the water this way and take it over, right? Did we do that?
So how has it changed? It's changed dramatically in the last 5 years. One,
Yeah.
we have a lot more treatment area online
Right.
that allows us to do it. We've made a lot of, invested a lot of work in the stormwater treatment areas themselves, rehabilitating them, and getting their performance back to where it needs to be, so to be able to accept that water. We've made investments in exotic management in the aquatics area that you've heard Lawrence talk about with Cristata. But infrastructure-wise, most importantly and most notably to the south is the 8.5 square mile area and that seepage cutoff wall that this board approved and we got constructed and is in place now, that removes one of those restrictions that Mr. Bergeron always speaks to during his comments, and allowing that water to come out of the conservation areas, which therefore then lets more water into the conservation areas from the top.
And I guess what I'm really trying to get to is some verbal confirmation to the people who live in Martin County, the people who live around that area of the Indian River Lagoon, who are so upset and so concerned about the ecosystem there and the changes that have occurred because of the last discharges,
Mhm.
that we are focused on taking it south, creating a situation so that it doesn't pile up, working with the, sometimes people just need to hear the words out loud, right? That we are focused, that we know how to do that, and that we are going to focus every day in every way to ensure that we will not have discharges to the Indian River Lagoon in the way we did last year. And I know we can't make promises. They know that we can't make promises. But I want them to know that we are focused every day on doing better and using what we now have to keep that from happening again. Being out there with them to see how the fishing has changed and where certain flats used to be full of grass just recently and the grass is gone. And to see the pain on their face, because these weren't just organizations, these were individual landowners who called me that I don't know, who called me and say, hey, can I take you out on a boat? And listen, if you want to take me out on a boat, you call me. I don't care where you live. I'm going. But it was, right? But, and it was really eye-opening, and I felt their concern and I felt their pain.
Yeah, absolutely. In the words of the esteemed Executive Director, Drew Bartlett, we are laser focused on moving water south and balancing the entire needs of the system. So, how has water moved around the system? For this wet season, just started, as I said, so there's not a whole lot of information here populated in this table. As we move forward in time, you'll start to see those numbers increased, starting there over here on the west coast. Pretty much all of the water, 2/3 of the water that has been moved to the estuary has come back from Lake Okeechobee, so 100,000 of that 136,000 acre feet have come from Lake Okeechobee, and that's those beneficial flows that I've talked about, especially during that dry month of May. Over on the east coast, there hasn't been any discharges from the C44 basin, C23-24, nor the C25 basin. So that estuary has had no basin runoff so far since about, 3 weeks ago now? May 13th, if my quick math is correct. And there hasn't been, as you can imagine, hardly any inflows to Lake Okeechobee from the north, with no rainfall during the month of May. With that, Lawrence?
Thank you. So here, where John was talking about our ecological envelope, you see that the 2014 stage now, which is 12.71, I believe today, we're finally back into that ecological envelope. Over on the right-hand side, you see much of the marsh is drying down. This is more of where we would like to be at this time of the year. And I want to talk about kind of the difference between the regular ecological envelope and then you have the recovery envelope. So the recovery envelope is there, and it's really for if we have lost SAV and we're trying to recover SAV, where do we need to be? And so I've had many questions about the shape of this ecological envelope and why is it shaped the way it is. So if we are looking to maintain SAV that is already out there, if we have lush groves of SAV across the lake, we need to be at 13 feet for 30 days between June and July. That's to maintain the SAV that's already there. If we want to recover SAV, this is why it's shaped the way at the bottom. We need to be 90 days at 12 feet between April 15th and September 15th, or we need to be 60 days at 11.5 feet between May 1st and the beginning of August. This is to get water levels down to a level at which where the SAV is growing along the fringe of the marsh itself, to have light penetration great enough to really spur that growth of SAV. So this is what, when John talks about recovery and us wanting to move into recovery next year, where will we need to be poised at the end of this wet season in order to get here? You know, you look at it and you say that the lake drops about 3 feet on average. So, you know, from an ecological standpoint, we wouldn't want to be above 15 in order to try to get here to have good SAV recovery for the next year.
Lawrence, before you go on.
Sure.
Can you go back to that page? So I see the duration is that accurate to the time of year too? In other words, if you had 90 days in the dry season, would you have as much recovery, SAV recovery?
Yeah, you can start that recovery sooner if you're lower. So that's why it's saying you need to be, you see that change.
Yeah.
If, if we hit 12 and we stayed there longer into the wet season, but that typically doesn't happen because you're going to have rainfall and that's going to increase. So your time at depth is longer when it's deeper, and time at depth's a little shorter when your stage is shallower.
Right, but you might be answering it, but if you move that 90-day or the 60-day to the right more, would you have, would you need a longer duration for SAV recovery out of the wet summer season?
No,
Is it a
your
seasonal
time of
growth
recovery
pattern?
is going to be the same. It's just your ability to actually maintain that duration
Right.
is going to be impacted because the wet season.
Because of
will
the
have
wet
started.
season.
Yes, sir.
So if we look at this trend, I mean, we're dipping closer to, first of all, there's very little to no SAV to maintain.
Correct.
So we'll take that out of the equation. So we need full recovery. So we're dipping towards a level, but we're dipping towards a recovery level, but we're dipping at a time where it's very unlikely that we're going to stay there for any duration of time, period. So could you, we've talked about this in previous meetings, one of the reasons we would not go into a recovery period in this year is because of El Nino, correct?
Correct.
So if we didn't have, say we didn't have an El Nino year this year, would we, can you remind me, Losum, what triggers a recovery plan?
Yeah, recovery is if you've been above 16 or 16.5, one of those two, and you have a certain lack of, you have a metric amount of SAV that is not on the lake. So you're saying, I have this little SAV, I've been at 16 for this many years, and I haven't had a return frequency to get to a recovery in a certain number of years. So we looked at this past year, we knew we didn't have much SAV on the lake at all. But we also knew we were going into El Nino. So as you're checking boxes, that El Nino is the real big X on the box that says, as much as you need it, there is a very good chance of unlikelihood that you're going to be able to get it because you're going to have such a wet season that the lake is going to be above 16. So when we look at recovering, we look at these days that are needed in order to get there. The caveat on the upside is it should not go above 16 feet that following year to try to get to recovery. So as we're going this from the metric of going into recovery, we do not want the lake over 16 from an ecological standpoint for SAV recovery.
Next year is not supposed to be El Nino, correct?
This coming dry season is predicted to be a La Nina, correct?
A La
But
Nina.
one clarification I do want to make sure that you understand and everybody else understands is when Lawrence is talking about recovery for the lake, there are performance metrics that dictate when recovery should be implemented. But when you asked about your question about in Losum, that is a recovery mode, which is an operational practice. So recovery mode is different than the recovery metrics for the ecosystem in Lake Okeechobee. So right now, Lake Okeechobee is under the metric side, should be in recovery. But if Losum were the schedule right now, you have to implement recovery mode operations, and that is a dry season operation where you intentionally draw the lake levels down to achieve those performance metrics that Lawrence is talking about. In order to do that, you have to move that water east and west to the estuaries and south as much as possible. So it's a little bit different between recovery mode from an operational practice and the recovery metrics for lake health.
Well, that's a good distinction because it's still, I don't know, it's still it's confusing to me on what would trigger, and so we have the two modules, or you've got the operations and then the ecological, but the operations are also affected. The El Nino condition would affect the operations.
Correct. You can have the recovery metrics tripped, so to speak, from the ecological perspective, but not enter recovery mode from an operational perspective.
Which is where we are now.
Because of El Nino, La Nina type
Which
forecasts.
Which is where we are now.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry, tell me again the difference between a law and an L.
La Nina is lower rainfall during your typical dry season. So it's below average rainfall. Neither one of them have too much of an effect during the wet season. It's more of a dry season effect. And El Nino means for increased or above average rainfall during the dry season.
Aren't there other circumstances besides releases east-west that would allow for operationally a recover mode? I mean,
Yes,
if
if
the
there's-
reservoir, if the EAA reservoir was, there are other scenarios, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, you would look, so it's east, west, and south.
Yeah.
The predominant one is east and west, depending on the conditions in the south. So if you've come out of what we had been a couple months ago, where all the conservation areas were full during the dry season, you wouldn't have been able to move a tremendous of water like we have not been, unfortunately, up until the month of May when everything dried up, moving that lake water into the conservation areas. So if recovery mode operations had been triggered this past dry season, the majority of that water would have gone east and west.
We would have had extended periods of release than we did have.
To
Okay.
achieve what you see on the screen right now with the 30, 60, and 90-day timeframes.
Right, right. Understood. Okay, thanks.
I want you to kind of keep going. So what I want to know is, are we going to do anything actively to hit the recovery zone since we aren't in it and we don't have anything to maintain? Are we planning to do anything to get down into the recovery?
Yeah, we are continuing to move that water south. That 600 to 800 cubic feet per second that I had mentioned, that's going to continue to move south for as long as we can. And whether or not you get down into the recovery envelope, that'll be dictated by Mother Nature and rainfall.
Okay.
I think the semantics are unfortunate, because one is operational, and I guess. So if Loathsome, if we don't have a really wet summer, would we still go into recovery next year if we wanted SAV recovery?
That's a good question. I have to think about that one. I think there is a temporal component also, and it's not just 16 feet in 1 year, it's 16 feet recently. I'd have to go back and look
Well,
at
that's
it.
what I'm wondering, because I think from a policy standpoint, we pretty much, I think everyone would like to see the SAV come back. But if you can't do that unless Loathsome says, oh, you have to check the box on recovery, or you can't check the box on recovery, then that's something we probably need to discuss at some point.
Yeah, we can look into it and get back to you.
Okay. Looking at the hydrology of Lake Okeechobee, you can see that we're losing, or a lot of the water coming out. We have 3,300 CFS coming out just from evapotranspiration, and we are moving water to the east out of S77 and to the south for water supply. And the easiest way to see that is on the right-hand side, where you look at the orange, and that's the combined inflows, and you look how much greater the blue and the green is, which are outflows. Looking at the cyanobacterial bloom distribution across the lake currently, it's mostly around the littoral fringe. And the things that really drive cyanobacteria currently are temperature. The dashed line at the bottom, which is 25 degrees Celsius, or for most of us, 77 degrees Fahrenheit, when temperatures get above that, that is when our main player of BGA, which is Microcystis, really likes that warmer temperature and starts to proliferate. And you see that we have been above that, and even above 30, which is 86 degrees. So it's a warm water body right now. So that's conditions for blue-green algae to go ahead and grow and produce. One of the other things that really determines its distribution across the lake is wind direction. So that bottom graph is showing, winds blowing out of the east, and that pushes it over to that western side of the lake. Now, things that disrupt it are going to be wind. The surface winds are going to keep it from forming at the surface, and rainfall. Rainfall physically disrupts it as well, and that's what we're seeing in the graphic on the bottom left. So we haven't had a lot of rainfall to do physical disruption, but we have had pretty high winds. We'll look at what is going on with blue-green algae in our biweekly samples that we've been taking. And you'll notice in the taxa column, which is this column right here, is almost completely dominated by microcystis. So that's because of temperatures that we have out there currently. We consider a bloom condition is 40 milligrams per liter, and we have bloom conditions at several sites across. I've told you all numerous times that toxin is not always being produced by microcystis. It produces the toxin microcystin. And so microcystis can be out there and not producing. It can be out there producing but not releasing, or it can be out there producing and releasing. So even though we do have microcystis, across the board, it's not all releasing toxin. And the highest toxin value that we do see currently, I believe, is 3.0. And if you come over here, the recreational limit is 8 micrograms per liter. So we do have toxin within the lake currently, but it is not extremely high. And if we look at the factors of what really drives it from a nutrient standpoint, we've talked about dissolved inorganic nitrogen, or the unwrapped candy, the food that it really prefers. And we see what levels have been like, and currently those levels within the orange band, which is the pelagic zone, the outside, those are starting to decline. So even though we're not seeing, major blooms in the outside, this is of course used from hyperspectral imaging. There are some minor blooms that are occurring out there that are using up this source. So that's where we've said previously that, as we go through the season and we have blooms that do occur, as they do occur, they're using up the energy that is there, the food source that is there. And I've said in the past that we don't want blooms, but when blooms do occur early in the season, it can use up the source so that they don't proliferate as intensely or as long throughout the summer season. Looking at wading bird foraging, this is the first survey that we've had which has been above the 5-year average, is because we have water levels that have gotten down and are appropriate for wading birds to actually get out into the marsh and forage. So we had, in the last survey, we had about 8,000 wading birds that are foraging out in the marsh, which is great. The only downside of that is that it's late in the season. So if those birds are thinking now there's a lot of prey available, I'm going to go ahead and nest, it's at the very end of the nesting season, and those nests probably would not be successful. And we look at snail kite nesting. Lake Okeechobee on the top you see is the primary spot that they've been nesting throughout the state this year, followed in second place by the Kissimmee Chain of Lakes. So we've had, you look at those top, there's 46 successful nests so far out of these numbers. On the lake itself, on the bottom, we've had 24. I've said it in the past that snail kites, unfortunately, aren't the most successful parents at getting their kids out of the house. And this has been a kind of a typical year for the unsuccessful part of that as well. Moving over to the estuaries, on that top bar, or that top graphic, you see the dark blue are lake releases, and we haven't had any lake releases since April. So what that does, when you look at the two graphics down on the bottom left-hand side, you're looking at the salinity gradient throughout the estuary, and you see that it is a very estuarine condition right now. It looks really good. It's actually a little high currently for adult oysters, but juvenile and spat from oysters really like higher salinity, and we see that we have a bump in production currently within the St. Lucie. So that's a good thing that we're seeing on that side. Moving over to the Caloosahatchee, that blue, you see we have been pulsing, the Army Corps has been pulsing water beneficially at about 2,000 CFS a weekly average. And that has set up this salinity gradient that you see down at the bottom, which is a typical salinity gradient we like to see within the Caloosahatchee, where you have the upper portion, which is freshwater, and then it gets more saline as you reach the mouth. Where that is for adult oysters is just a little bit high at 2 of the stations and almost at the low end at one other station. But I want to show you something pretty remarkable. Look at reproduction this year for oysters in the Caloosahatchee. The beneficial releases that we have been sending has set up a salinity gradient, which is just fantastic. The water is warm, which means there's a lot of food available, even for the adult, for the spat oysters, and reproduction is off the chart. It's just absolutely fantastic. One of the things that we do worry about as oysters are usually in the bottom part of the estuary, when it does become very saline, that allows for marine predators to come in to kind of eat, what's there. So, any type of rainfall that we do get that kind of will ameliorate that high condition, but keep it in this good zone this is a fantastic thing to see for the Caloosahatchee.
Can we extrapolate that? So on the, not that we want to do releases, but in managing the releases, our recommendation was to stop at a certain time, which correlated to oyster spawning. So I was a little bit concerned, but I think we went into it a little bit, or maybe we went right up to it. Can we extrapolate that because releases stopped when they did, that this is a productive season, or is that unrelated?
We could go back and look at data, and we'd have to look at trend to try to get at that. But, we do stop because the thing you're concerned about is when you have velocities that are very high. You're worried about pushing those oysters either out off of their bed or past the beds that are downstream and pushing that spat out into the inlet. So, we do that from an oyster standpoint, and oysters down at the bottom, we're not so much as concerned about the high flows or the beneficial flows even. It's more in the top part of the estuary, in the freshwater area, where a lot of the marine species and more estuarine species go upstream to breed. And you get that push of water through that part now, and you're taking organisms out of the freshwater part of the system and putting them in the estuarine system. That, I would say it was much more focused on that part of the ecosystem rather than the oysters themselves.
All right, so looking at the stormwater treatment areas, down here across the bottom, you can see all the La Nina years. I do need to follow up with some folks for 2024 here, because the last dry season that we just completed was an El Nino dry season. So I'm not sure that should have been shaded the way it is for a La Nina. But to Ms. Mead, your question, when we were talking earlier, I had referenced that transition when you flip from an El Nino to a La Nina type time frame. The year that you want to look at here is this 2006, 7, and 8 time frame right in there. In 2007, January of 2007 was the lowest recorded level for Lake Okeechobee, and we walked right into that 2007, 2008 drought. And that was in that transition when it's flipping back and forth between El Nino and La Nina. And you're not quite sure what the future wet season will hold. But so far for this wet season, all the water that has been processed through the stormwater treatment areas has come from Lake Okeechobee, and that's that 600 to 800 cubic feet per second that I've mentioned a couple times. It's moving south from the lake. We're going to continue that operation for the extended future until rains start developing and precludes that capacity in the canal system to be able to move that water. But once a rain event has subsided, we'll once again resume moving that water south and treating it through the stormwater treatment areas. Lawrence?
Sure. What we're seeing so far is we have a dry start to the wet season. So we are not seeing a lot of water moving through the STAs currently. And if you look at what the outflow concentrations, the mean flow-weighted mean concentrations are for the different STAs, we don't have a value currently for 1 East or for 5-6, and it's because we don't have inflows or outflows right now to generate a mean flow-weighted concentration. But in general, the STAs are performing fairly well. I mean, we have 12 in STA 3.4, which is fantastic. I mean, 15 in 3.4, we have 12 in 2. These are Q-Bell numbers, which are wonderful. We do have all of the STAs currently at their optimum depth, except for 3.4. 3.4 is where we are taking 600 acre feet, or 600 CFS from Lake Okeechobee, trying to get that water in and through and down south, because south is dry, which I will get to in 1 second. But looking across the STAs, we only have one flowway, which is offline, and that's this flowway over here. It's because we're doing vegetation grow-in right now after some construction work that we did at the bottom to go in and repair some erosion that occurred. You'll see throughout right now MBTA nesting, Migratory Bird Treaty Act nesting. So when we get birds that are covered by this act, have coverage, and they nest, and they're ground nesters, black-neck stilt predominantly is the one that's nesting now. When they nest, we need to maintain water levels that are conducive for their nesting to be successful. Not a lot to see here except the 5.6 dries down pretty quickly, and that's why I'm happy that Lucene is finishing up the C139 FEB, so we can keep this one hydrated and performing well. I'd like to talk to, Drew talked about restoration strategies and what this is. When we built the STAs, we built them to reduce phosphorus to a level of 50 parts per billion. And then we went through some litigation, and there were new rules put in place that said we need to meet Q-Bell. And so there was a lot of work that we needed to do to the STAs, get a lot better understanding of how they work, how they function, how can we best operate them, how can we change our operations to optimize phosphorus reduction. So there was a large study put in place that said, we're going to do all these construction features that you've heard about. We're going to do expansions and that sort of thing. But we also need to understand the science of what's going on in these STAs so we can make sure that we are operating in them and we are maintaining them in a way that is most beneficial for us to meet Q-Bell. So there were 21 different scientific studies that were put in place, all to culminate this year. 18 have finished, 13 are about to finish. And as Drew said, we highlighted this recently in this special issue of Ecological Engineering. 20 manuscripts on the science that has been done within the STAs. And this science is incredible. This is world-renowned science. We are the foremost experts on created wetlands in the world. And it's really, really impressive. So you go through these, some of you, if you need, to get to sleep at night, you might want to read something on PFLUX or something like that. But, this information is out there, and it's really, really cool. And it hasn't been out there long, and it's already been cited over 40 times, manuscripts within this. So, the eyes of the world look at us for how to create these, what the science is that goes on inside them. And this is just a real big kudos to the district on the science that we've been doing for restoration strategies. And these are very, very 30,000 feet of what we're seeing. And we know that the management of the internal load, so what's coming in to the STA from a phosphorus load, is going to have an impact on us meeting Q-Bell. That loading rate, how flow rates occur, when they occur over time, needing a rest period during a certain period of time. These are all very important for us to meeting that low total phosphorus outflow. There are internal processes that both take up phosphorus, but also release phosphorus. So knowing how to flow waters through, how to reduce the releasing part and increase the reducing part is very important for us to know. And then I'll give you an analogy of the STAs. You know, the district, we're like the parents. We created these STAs and they're our kids. And we have found that every STA and flowway is different, just like each of your kids, is different. So we have to understand how each flowway, what kind of characteristics it has, how does it best function, and how we operate it. So just the science that we've done is incredible, and kudos to staff and all the contractors that we've worked with over the years, and just fantastic job.
So looking at how water has been moved around, the southern portion of the system, you can see here that the roughly 200, just a little over 200,000 acre feet of water have come out of Lake Okeechobee. That's a combination of not only that 60 some odd thousand acre feet that I talked about going to the stormwater treatment areas, but also largely that water supply delivery into the basin. For the water conservation areas, haven't been a whole lot of inflows because of that lack of rainfall. Hopefully that will change on Tuesday or Wednesday, and they'll get some direct rainfalls. You'll see in the next slide on levels in the conservation areas, but farther south, we are still continuing to deliver water out of Conservation Area 3 in concert with the Corps of Engineers to meet the Tamiami Trail flow formula, which, if I'm not mistaken, is around 640 cubic feet per second. It'll be listed on the next slide, actually. And then along the lower east coast, not a whole lot of runoff going to the Intercoastal Waterway or to the tidal basins in the the Biscayne Bay down here, just because of that lack of rainfall. So looking at the conservation areas, water levels up here on the upper right, Conservation Area 1, you can see with that dry month of May, it has dramatically drawn down some, and water levels have been receding. Similar story down here in Area 2. Can't really see it because it's a little masked under the text there, but for this time of year, we're following that green line. That green trace is the actual water level indicator for the regulation schedule. So it is about, if it already hasn't as of this morning, cross what we call the floor elevation for Conservation Area 2, which is that sort of tannish brown line there towards the bottom of the graphic. What that means is that any water that is let out of Conservation Area 2 must be preceded by an equal volume of water coming into the conservation area. So right now, we're not delivering any real water supply out of Area 2 in anticipation of it going below the floor. We do have some banked water that we would be able to deliver should the time come, but really we're kind of waiting and seeing what that rain event on Tuesday, Wednesday of next week may hold and bring those water levels back up. So that's what we're looking for, is that Mother Nature to correct itself and reverse that downward trend in Area 2. Similar story over here in Area 3. Water levels have come down in Area 3. It's getting pretty close to its floor, but once again, hopefully that rain event Tuesday, Wednesday will correct that. And you can see right there, the flow formula 627 cubic feet per second is what we're moving through S12C and D, but there's not a whole lot coming out of there. I think it's maybe 10 CFS or less. So the vast majority of that 627 is going through the 333 complex into the L29 and then into Northeast Shark River Slough. Going down the South Dade conveyance system down here, a lot of those pump stations aren't really in operations right now because there's really no water to move. Rich showed you the one graphic for 332C and the construction work that is going on there, so that station has been offline. The majority of it gets moved through 332D, which is a little bit farther south, where they're just pumping as needed as canal levels sort of rebound with some of that seepage, and we return it back over into the detention cells.
John, when you say that you have water banked, what does that really mean? Where are you holding it?
It's an accounting principle. So when we forecast within the next 7 days that Area 2 would go below that floor, we look back 7 days and how much water came out of STA 2 into Water Conservation Area 2. I don't know the number, but just for simple math, we'll say it was 100 acre feet in that preceding 7 days. So that means we could move 100 acre feet out. So just looking at some of the forecasts from the dynamic position analysis for the 2 conservation areas, you can see over here on the left-hand side, anticipation of those wet season rains will start bringing water levels back up, not only there, but also in conservation area 3. If you're following that 50% line, at least right now, it looks favorable. That won't wind up back above schedule there by the end of the wet season for 50% probability. Hopefully we won't have those high water conditions that we've experienced the last couple of years in Area 3, but again, it'll be for Mother Nature to tell us which way she wants to go. With that, Lawrence?
Surely. Well, as you look at this graph, you definitely see that when there is a relationship between inflows and salinity. So when we are not having inflows into Biscayne Bay, our salinity is increasing. And salinity here, when you hit 35, this is ocean water standard for salinity. And typically, bay or estuarine conditions want to be less than that. So we're definitely approaching a saltier condition within Biscayne Bay, hoping for rain events next week to come in and kind of ameliorate this condition with some runoff and some direct rainfall. As you look across the Everglades, it is amazing what a couple of months can do, and a couple of months of either prior to this of extreme rainfall and then being very deep to a couple months of not a lot of rainfall and them drying down very quickly. So if you look up at the top, John has gone through what those regulation schedules look like. What do we actually see from a depth perspective? We're drying down in 1 and 2 and in the top of 3A. Big Cypress is very dry. What you do see here is how COP and the Tamiami flow formula is a pull of water, and it keeps Everglades National Park and Shark River Slough hydrated. Whereas before that, we probably would not have this condition. So we are seeing conditions dry down pretty intensely. We still have almost connectivity down here in Taylor Slough. We definitely still have connectivity in Shark River Slough, and Lossman's is still pretty inundated. So as you go through and you look at that from a wading bird perspective, over here is a habitat suitability index saying what are depths that are suitable for wading birds, and anywhere you see that green color, that's like optimal conditions for wading birds. So you see in these numbers, they are all located around where that green is. And that's where also you're having drying conditions. We've talked about drying pools. As the Everglades dry down, they dry down into these pools which concentrate prey that make grocery shopping very, very easy for the parents. So something that we are seeing this year is there's a tremendous amount of nesting going on in 1A, which hasn't happened in several years, so this is really good for that part of the system. We do have 650 wood stork nests occurring now, but they happened a little too late. They have the longest gestation period, so although they're nesting now, those nests probably will not be successful. So the smaller wading birds, white ibis, and the smaller egrets, they had already started earlier, and we anticipate that those nests that are out there, you see the white ibis with 16,000, those will probably be successful this year. Where we will stand up from this year, this will definitely be a lower successful year than we've had in the past, but about every 3 years we've been having these booms that really sustains that population through time. And then finishing up down in Florida Bay, I've showed you the interquartile range forever, which is this, I've called it the blue brick road. We've added more of a historic where we would like to be from a restoration standpoint, which is this dotted line for salinity. And you see both in the eastern and in the central Florida Bay, we've been below or hugging that restoration line. It's not really a restoration line, but that's what we really are trying to get to. You'll see that the western bay is starting to increase in salinity. It's still within its interquartile range, so we're not too concerned. But the Western Bay is the one that, as we get into drier conditions, is more rainfall driven. We've had a lot of rainfall down there, but even with, COP operations, you've seen we've been able to keep the sponge wet, which I've talked about, so that when we do get rain events, it very quickly can have that overland flow into the bay without it being absorbed by the soil surface. So, Florida Bay is in a very good condition right now at the end of the dry season.
All right, so this is what we've kind of been talking about, right? Looking there at June, equal chances of anything happening is what the Climate Prediction Center is calling for. But when you get into the next 3-month window through August, it's talking for that slightly leaning above forecast for South Florida and the 30 to 40% chance of having a above average rainfall going through the majority of the wet season. And that trend holds through October, where you're still leaning above maybe a little bit increased chances of 40 to 50 for north of Lake Okeechobee, but 30 to 40 still for south of Lake Okeechobee. Then when you get out there to the January and March timeframe, the real heart of the dry season here in South Florida, it flip-flops. It's indicative of that La Nina type of phenomenon, wherein it goes back to a 40 to 50% chance of leaning below average rainfall. I know we've all looked at these every month for 7 years now that everybody's been on the board. And when we get out that far, what it looks like today is not going to be what it looks like next month. So it's just information that we have to consider as we look out farther into the future, as best as our crystal balls allow us to. But what I can tell you, this is actually yesterday. It says current conditions, but this is really yesterday's graphic. So what this is the precipitable water in the atmosphere. And all these maroons and reds and purples down here over Central America, there's a lot of precipitable water in the atmosphere down over Central America. And what we're going to see over the next couple days, by the time we get to Wednesday of next week, is all of that's going to start to get pulled up over top of us. That's why you've heard me a couple times already talk about a rain event on Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. This is where it's coming from as a front moves across the peninsula, and it starts to pull a lot of that moisture up into South Florida. So looking at the forecast, and actually if you look at the forecast that is out on the district's website for this morning, it's slightly different here. The Tuesday has moved around a little bit, and the Wednesday has a lot of that really dark shaded green right about here over just south of Lake Okeechobee, and that equates to about an aerial average of an inch of rainfall. So just as metric wise, whenever the district water managers see an aerial average of an inch of rainfall over a portion of the district, that gets their attention. That is a pretty decent amount of rain. So right now it's got that bullseye over just south of the lake in the water conservation areas. So hopefully that'll help correct what we've been talking about with the drying conditions in the Everglades. As I've said a couple different times, we're going to continue to move water south out of Lake Okeechobee. You can see over there on the west coast, probably going to get some decent rains and could have the potential to generate some runoff going down the Caloosahatchee. So again, we're in that sort of funky time of year where this first week is below normal, but then the second week out there is about to be above to much above normal rainfall. So when you talk about system operations and making sort of decisions, right now the Corps of Engineers has been doing the 2,000 cubic feet per second to the Caloosahatchee, maintaining those beneficial flows. Sort of the mental calculus you go through, are you sticking with the 2,000 or are you dropping to 1,200 cubic feet per second and still maintaining those beneficial flows? Those are sort of all the things that are going through water managers' head this week as we look at the forecasts and both near-term and long-term forecasts and what we're having to deal with system-wide. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you if the board has any additional questions.
Great, thank you very much, John. Does anyone have any further questions? No? And you're good? Okay. All right, get off easy. You didn't, though. Thank you. Next, we'll go to staff reports, and Ms. Heater with the monthly financial.
Good afternoon. The monthly financial report in your packages is through April, month of April. So a few highlights. During the month of April, we collected about $44 million. That's a little low for what we've seen this year thus far. And we spent $108 million. But even though there's a slight difference there, at the beginning of the year, we have collected over $656 million and spent $537. So, we're still on the positive side. Your ad valorem taxes, you collected about $14.6 million. We're starting to see that decrease because your uptick is, the first quarter of your fiscal year. And the intergovernmental, which are dominantly state revenues, we brought in about $23 million. On the expenditure side, we spent out of that $108 million, we spent over $73 million in restoration and $25 in operations and maintenance. So to keep that theme kind of going, this morning you did approve the acceptance of the annual financial report, and which included the annual comprehensive financial report. First, I'd like to thank the Finance Bureau team and staff that's led by Michelle Quigley for all of their hard work, towards that report. It's over a 200-page document, and a lot of work does go into it. But at the end of that report, towards the back, there's a statistical section, which has a lot of interesting information in it. It's many of the schedules, they're called schedules, many of the schedules have a 10-year look, a 10-year comparison. So some of those highlights that I thought and that we thought that you may find interesting is that over the past 10 years, so from 2014 to 2023, your capital assets, which are your buildings, your land, canals and levees, water control structures, has increased by 57%. Your 10-year construction in progress, so those are your projects under construction, over the past 10 years has increased 319%. Your 10-year operating expenses has only increased by 36%. And your FTEs has decreased by 7%. So what that shows is that we are lean. We're managing the agency very lean. So wanted to bring those to your attention. And that's it.
Thank you. I think doing more with less is probably trite, but accurate.
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions? Ms. Heater? Nope. Thanks.
All right. Thank you.
And we'll go now to general public comment.
We have none, Mr. Chairman.
Great. We'll go to board comment. Mr. Steinle?
I just want to congratulate the district and staff and everybody for 75 years. It's pretty amazing to be part of, and I mention this often, a government agency that functions as efficiently and productively as you guys do. So proud to be a small part of that. Thank you all.
Thanks, Mr. Steinle. Ms. Meads? Mr. Butler? Nope. Vice Chair Wagner?
No comment.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez? And Colonel Rowan?
Nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't think I have much to say. I can absolutely jump on what Jay just said, and I'm very proud to be part of this organization and share all your accomplishments with you, although you all do the work. But thank you for that. And I appreciate the discussion that Lawrence and John, we just had. I think that was really helpful, and I think that helps all of us understand sort of where we are now and where we're likely to be next year at this time as we move forward. I don't think we have any other business, so we'll be back here next month, and this meeting's adjourned. Thanks.